Chapter 8:18. Ordinary corpses would definitely not be able to nurture such a huge number of corpse worms. With so many corpse worms appearing, it indicates that we are not far from the Guardian Corpse King. The World Group's mission was to bring the Guardian Corpse King back. To the World Group, to be able to reach the Guardian Corpse King's array, it should be a joyous matter. But Yiqing Luo only felt strange. According to the 3000 Peach Blossom Group's information on Ling King's tomb, the tomb is set up with arrays and mechanisms, and if one is slightly careless, one's head would be separated from his body. But we're about to reach the Guardian Corpse King's array, but we haven't met with any danger along the way. Not to mention mechanisms, there wasn't even a single bit of array at all. The only danger was this wave of corpse worms. How could it be so smooth? Thinking back to when they were at the outer boundary, the sudden collapse of the tomb, Yiqing Luo was even more certain that her earlier guess was probably true. There was another group of people at the bottom of the tomb. These arrays and mechanisms were settled by that group of people to be able to reach the bottom of the tomb without any casualties. The other party, who on earth were they? They actually had such ability? Yiqing Luo's expression turned increasingly grave. Yiqing Luo's words were clearly heard by every single mercenary in the World Group. They also realized that there wasn't any danger along the way, and it was merely the tranquility before the storm. This mission in Ling King's tomb was much more dangerous than what they had imagined. The World Group's emotions had also affected the Azura Group's side. Nangong Firen's attention was totally placed on Yiqing Luo, as his eyes didn't conceal his interest towards her at all. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression gradually turning grave and finally becoming more and more solemn, his heart also started to tremble fiercely. He knew in his heart that the journey ahead would probably be filled with danger. He retracted his gaze and took a look at Nangong Lin, who was following closely beside him as he pursed his lips and transmitted his voice solemnly through the mercenary group badge. Feng Ru, you're still poisoned, so if you meet with any danger later, you don't need to care about anything else. Just help me take good care of Lin or we'll do. Yifeng Ru frowned as his vision swept past the timid Nangong Lin. I will take care of Lin or her, but I'm poisoned doesn't mean that I'm useless. Up till now, no one has ever come out alive from the bottom of the Ling King's tomb, but we've walked till now, and just like what the World Group's Vice Group leader said, we're about to reach the array protecting the King Corpse. This meant that they were not far from the main tomb of the Ling King. This also meant that this was the lowest level of the tomb. Just as he finished his words, a dissatisfied expression surfaced on Zi Qianqian's beautiful face. Leader, the World Group is merely a bronze plate mercenary group that's slightly prepared for King Ling's tomb. You really believe that woman's words? Qianqian. Nangong Firen frowned and glanced at Zi Qianqian with displeasure. He knew his deputy leader's character very well, so he didn't say much. It's always good to be careful. I hope the Death God Mercenary Group can guarantee the glory of its own gold medal. Both groups were saying the same thing to their own teams. The environment in front of him had changed. The long and deep tunnel turned into 5 narrow paths. There was also a black coffin placed on each of the paths. Coffin? Everyone's expressions had a huge change. Nangong Firen's heart sunk. Indeed, we've really reached the array protecting the King Corpse. Chapter 8:19. These words were extremely domineering. Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent as her frosty eyes squinted slightly as she continued. In the ancient tomb, there are many things which feed on something from the human body. For example, blood, essence, flesh. Pausing, her lips curled upward slightly. Under such circumstances, when they saw such a strange smile, everyone couldn't help but shuddered. Even though the one smiling was a peerless beauty that could topple cities, everyone still felt terrified. Nangong Lin was so frightened that her face turned pale as tears streamed down as she buried her head in her brother's arms, not daring to cry out. Nangong Firen's brows creased tightly as he gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo, as a glint flashed past his eyes. Earlier, when Yiqing Luo made a move on Nangong Lin, it wasn't because she wanted to kill her, but she was certain that as her brother, he wouldn't just stand by and watch. If he hadn't carried Nangong Lin away in time, then these corpse worms would have completely swallowed Nangong Lin. Many thanks. Nangong Firen wasn't that kind of idiot who couldn't differentiate right from wrong as he directly jumped out these two words towards Yiqing Luo. There were probably less than 5 people in this world who could receive Nangong Firen's thanks personally. To the others, this was considered a huge honor. But Yiqing Luo didn't reveal much emotions toward his gratitude as she spoke calmly. There are a lot of corpse worms here, so I believe there should be some corpses which are used to feed them. There is a possibility that we have already reached the vicinity of the array which protects the king corpse. For those corpses which had died for hundreds of years and were only left with white bones, it wasn't possible to condense so many corpse worms. To be able to condense 100 over corpse worms was already considered as the maximum. Yiqing Luo looked at those Azura god groups mercenaries whose faces were filled with astonishment. Come over. Those mercenaries stared intently at the place which Nangong Lin was sitting on earlier as the corpse worms surged densely, not daring to move at all. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned slightly cold. Since you're not willing to come over, then continue to stay there. Saying that, she raised her hand. Nangong Firen hugged Nangong Lin tightly as he borrowed the force from the rock walls to swiftly leap over to the world group side. Immediately following that, Zi Qianqian, Yifeng Ru, and Wei Beilai also jumped over to the world group side. The other mercenaries naturally obeyed their leader's orders. When the last Azura God group's mercenary group stood still, he saw Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers moving. Nangong Firen and the others then realized that what Yiqing Luo was holding in her hands was a ball-shaped lamp oil. With a flick of her finger, the oil lamp immediately burst into flames. Yiqing Luo casually threw it towards the direction where those worms were surging. With a bang, the lamp was fried, and the flame instantly spread over those worms. The flames surged, elongating everyone's shadows. However, when the fire burned, the crowd did not feel the slightest bit of warmth. Instead, they felt that it was getting colder and colder. Thick smoke billowed and filled the long tunnel. Everyone's eyes were a little dry from the smoke. Let's go. Yiqing Luo looked at those worms which were engulfed by the flames, as her tightly knitted brows had yet to ease up. She turned around and left, and the others naturally followed suit. Long Yunjian walked beside Yiqing Luo, and when he saw Yiqing Luo's frowning expression, he bent down slightly as he inquired softly, "What's the matter?" Yiqing Luo went silent for a moment as she transmitted her voice through the mercenary group badge. Somehow, I feel that after we entered the tomb today, everything that happened is very strange. Somehow, I feel something is not right. Chapter 821. 5 coffins, as black as ink, without any other colors. The most attractive thing was the extremely complicated patterns carved on the top of the coffins. Looking closely, those patterns weren't totems, but a strange array. These 5 coffins are not the real corpse king. Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks as her gaze swept past the 5 small paths. 5 corpse guard king, king guard tomb king. This was the 8 words mantra which was passed down from the tomb king's main tomb. In these 5 coffins, there were 5 corpse puppets. Initially, when the corpse puppets set up the array, the only instruction they received was to guard the corpse king, to stop any intruders who went near the corpse king. After the 5 corpse puppets, it was the real corpse king. After Yiqing Luo saw the 5 coffins, her slender brows creased tightly. Their mission was to carry the coffins of the corpse king back. To carry the corpse king away, it was necessary to subdue these 5 corpse puppets. Furthermore, the guard king corpse might not be obedient enough to let her carry it away. This was an especially thorny task. Even if they reached the corpse king's array unscathed, this mission, they might not be able to complete it. Didn't you say, since we're already here, we should at least give it a try? Long Yunjian stood by her side, as his voice was deep. Yiqing Luo heaved a long sigh, as her long eyelashes fluttered, as she gazed at the 5 coffins in front. Yes, we're already here. There's no reason to give up just because we're not feeling well. But when he said it, his tone was unusually heavy. Not knowing why, Yi-Ching Luo had an inexplicable feeling of fluster. The profound jade heart that was surging in his chest was also unceasingly emitting a kind of warning intent. DMO Xian had only left for a day. By right, this profound jade heart, which was formed by DMO Xian, shouldn't have such a huge reaction. Last, do you feel it? In her mind, Old Man Song's voice suddenly rang. Yi-Ching Luo was slightly stunned as her heart sunk. Old Man Song, what's going on? There are several reasons why your profound jade heart is acting strangely. Currently, the closest reason is that your own strength has surpassed the level of the profound jade heart that DMO Xian forged for you. As a result, this profound jade heart is unable to withstand your own strength. To put it bluntly, it also meant that Yi-Ching Luo's strength was increasing day by day. This profound heart jade that DMO Xian had formed for Yi-Ching Luo was unable to withstand her strength. Especially when Yi-Ching Luo was in King Ling's tomb. The sense of danger caused the energy stored within Yi-Ching Luo's body to expand continuously, causing her profound jade heart to be unable to take it. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her pink lips as her fair little hand covered her own heart, feeling the incessant impact of the scorching heat. After a while, she said bitterly, "What else?" Also, Old Man Song's voice paused, and he sighed. "In your heart, don't you already have an answer?" Yi-Ching Luo's face turned slightly pale as she lowered her eyelids. Indeed, she already had an answer in her heart. He just didn't want to admit this answer. But hearing Old Man Song's tone, it also meant that her thoughts were not wrong. There was another possibility that something had happened to the mother profound jade heart, which had formed this son profound jade heart. This thought flashed past her mind, but was directly rejected by Yi-Ching Luo. Who was DMO Xian? The overlord who was invincible in this world. How could something possibly happen? Yi-Ching Luo's slender fingers slightly curled up. While her thoughts were in a trance, there was a small conflict over at the Azure Group's side. Nangong Lin was making a fuss about wanting to go home. Under the push, Yi-Ching Luo's body was pushed forward a few steps. Chapter 822. Everyone's hair stood on end as their calves trembled and their entire bodies trembled. The raging wind swept up the shattered stones on the ground as it flew in all directions. Their ears were filled with an ear-piercing howl of the wind, mixed with the shattered stones rolling onto the ground as the explosion sounds were heard. A gust of chilly air speedily spread in the tunnel. Bam, 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 bam. A series of collisions were heard, and the 5 black coffin lids, which were placed quietly on the 5 small paths, all bounced open at the same time. 5 black coffin lids crossed each other in midair, and, after drawing a few cold arcs, it directly leaned against the side of the coffins. Following that, 5 corpse puppets bounced out from the 5 open coffins. 5 corpse puppets stood stiffly at the front of the coffins, as though they were wooden puppets which were hung in midair, without any signs of life. They were dressed in black loose robes, and their entire heads were shrouded in the black robes, so their faces couldn't be seen. Corpse puppets! Corpse puppets! 5 high-level corpse puppets! Ghost! Ghost! We're dead meat. 5 high-leveled corpse puppets have been awakened. The Death God mercenary groups, mercenaries all shrunk backwards, as no one was willing to stand at the forefront. And when they saw Yi-Ching Luo standing on that small path, they couldn't help but burst out curses. The World Group, are you trying to get us killed? You obviously know the terror of the 5 corpses and still want to alarm them. These mercenaries, because Yi-Ching Luo had struck their pride several times, putting on a high and mighty look, they had long been dissatisfied with Yi-Ching Luo. Now that they saw Yi-Ching Luo alarmed the 5 high-leveled corpse puppets, their belly full of terror, and terror exploded at this instance. The World Group's Vice Group Leader, what's the matter with you? Once the 5 corpses are alarmed, they will kill all the intruders before they stop. Do you want us to die with you? One person opened his mouth, and one after another people started to open their mouths. But when Yi-Ching Luo turned her eyes sideways and stared coldly at them, Everyone's voices seemed to be stuck in their throats, not able to say a single word. Her ravishing looks seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Her long, narrow, and bewitching eyes shot out a piercingly cold light. It was as if being swept by her gaze would make one feel as if they were in an ice house, especially with the 5 corpse puppets in the background. This killing gaze swept over and successfully silenced the clamoring mercenaries. Yiqing Luo stood on that small path, not moving at all. After making those people shut up, she turned around and stared indifferently at the 5 corpse puppets standing upright in the coffins. Her tone was calm, and no one could tell what she was feeling. The deal between the Killing God group and me is to assist the World group to complete the Mercenary Association's mission. After the members of the Azura group heard this, they were so nervous that they had difficulty breathing. His throat felt like it was being choked by something, and it was extremely uncomfortable. Complete the Mercenary Union's mission? Bring back the coffin of the Guardian Zombie King? How could this be possible? Don't joke around. Nangong Lin shivered in Nangong Firen's arms. Corpse puppets. Those are corpse puppets. Don't tell me you want to defeat these corpse puppets? Towards the terror of the corpse puppets, she more or less understood from the mutterings of the Azura group's mercenaries. It was undoubtedly like striking a rock with an egg. No matter if we want or not, we have no way out now. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as she calmly opened her mouth. The corpse puppets were alarmed, which indicated that the corpse puppet array had been activated. If there was still a trace of living aura in the tomb, these corpse puppets would not return to their coffins to sleep again. Chapter 823. I want to go home. Brother, I want to go home. She's a lunatic. Nangong Lin's chest was in pain as she bit her lower lip tightly. She was so scared that her tears kept flowing out. Nangong Firen frowned as she exchanged glances with the other vice group leaders. She could see the helplessness in each other's eyes, just as what Yiqing Luo said. No matter whether they wanted to defeat these 5 corpse puppets, they had no other way out. Once the corpse puppets were alarmed, none of them would be able to escape. Only by giving it their all would they have a chance to survive. If it wasn't for her overestimating herself, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Zi Qianqian's beautiful face surfaced a trace of sullen anger. She really thinks that she's so powerful, putting on a look of a senior to lecture us. In the end, it's because they don't have the ability to make sufficient preparations before taking on the mission. Those who have the ability, no matter where they go, will not be a problem. Qianqian. Nangong Firen shook her head at Zi Qianqian. Am I wrong? Zi Qianqian gave a cold harumph. If she really has the ability, she wouldn't have used her second brother's life to threaten us. Nangong Firen's brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Zi Qianqian's words weren't without reason. But Nangong Firen still felt that the World Group's cautious attitude was indeed what their Azura group lacked. Looking at Zi Qianqian's fairy-like face, which was obviously filled with disgust and arrogance, Nangong Firen could still see the jealousy towards Yiqing Luo in the depths of her eyes. Jealousy, yes. How could she not be jealous? All along, Zi Qianqian was hailed as the genius among the geniuses. She had an enviable, profound jade heart, and her cultivation speed was extraordinary, no matter if it was beauty, ability, or intellect. Zi Qianqian was forever high up and was hailed as Fairy Qianqian. Yiqing Luo's appearance was enough to make Zi Qianqian feel a sense of crisis. But now, Nangong Firen had no intention to delve into this issue with Zi Qianqian at this juncture. She only replied calmly, "Let's talk about this after we leave the tomb." Yiqing Luo stood stiffly on the spot as she squinted her eyes at the 5 corpse puppets. Her mind was searching for ways to deal with the corpse puppets. She could not move. The 5 corpse formation had already been activated. Now, as long as she took a slight step forward, the 5 corpse puppets would definitely jump up at the same time. Once they left the coffins, this fierce battle would begin. "Little girl." An old voice sounded extremely clear and spacious in this silent tunnel. Among the World Group, an old man dressed in a white brocade robe and dressed like a nouveau riche slowly climbed down from the back of a mercenary from the world group. As if he had just woken up, he stroked his messy white hair and yawned. "Not bad, little girl. You've reached the bottom of the tomb so quickly. Not bad, not bad. You're much faster than I expected." The appearance of the old man caused the gazes of the 100 or so mercenaries to focus on him. "The world group, are you guys crazy? Why did you bring your grandfather to this kind of place?" When Nangong Lin saw Holy Pirate, her face changed. She pointed at Holy Pirate angrily. "Do you think Ling King's tomb is a scenic spot? Do you think you could go sightseeing?" This was originally an extremely dangerous situation. An additional person who didn't even have the strength to trust a chicken meant that they had an additional burden. There was a possibility that it would lead to their total annihilation. The world group's youngsters frowned tightly as they stared at Nangong Lin unhappily. Right now, she was the biggest burden, okay? And she didn't even know it. Chapter 824. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her charming eyes were like frost as she cried out sharply. "Shut up. Now is not the time to quarrel. Gather your spirits and get into formation to defend." The world group's mercenaries retracted the thoughts in their eyes as they speedily got into formation, listening to Yiqing Luo's instructions. Nangong Fearing grabbed Nangong Lin's arm as he pushed her into Yifeng Ru's arms and immediately gave a stern command. God-slaying mercenary group, fully cooperate with the world mercenary group. That command was given, and although those mercenaries were dissatisfied, but they didn't show it out. As a mercenary, the most important condition was to obey all instructions. The two groups of people were already in position to prepare for battle. Yiqing Luo half narrowed her eyes as she glanced sideways at God Thief, who was standing by the side with a satisfied expression. "Come over here." God Thief was still stretching his waist when he heard Yiqing Luo's words, and in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of her. Towards this kind of gloomy place, God Thief was already used to it. Not to mention that he had been imprisoned in the underground prison for 10 years, living in darkness, gloomy days. Even if he hadn't gone to Death God Castle before he was imprisoned, he had been to places like tombs quite a number of times. The current God Thief walked towards Yiqing Luo with a calm expression. Standing by the side of the 5 small paths, God Thief dug his ears. "Young lady, you need my help so soon? What weaknesses does the corpse puppet have?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. She wasn't in the mood to joke around with him. God Thief scratched the back of his head as his face was still sloppy with an indifferent expression. But when he opened his mouth, he was extremely serious. These 5 corpse puppets were created by the combined efforts of the 4 sect masters 1,000 years ago. During the process of creation, they absorbed the heaven and earth's yin qi and the graveyard's grievance to form them, so they belong to the high-grade corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo was very clear about this point as she nodded her head and didn't say a word. After 1,000 years, these corpse puppets are only left with a set of skeletons. If they want to regain their human form, they will need to absorb living creatures, and after they merge with the living creatures, they will be able to take on the appearance of the merged living creatures. Because of this, the minute these corpse puppets moved, they would try their best to snatch the living creatures to merge with them. The corpse puppets have weaknesses, but the high-grade corpse puppets refined by the 4 great sect masters have no weaknesses. Holy Pirate stroked his white beard and gently sighed. He shook his head and said, "Normal corpse puppets, if they do not absorb yin energy or spirits, cannot use the body of a corpse puppet to continue living. To deal with normal corpse puppets, we just need to stop them from absorbing yin energy or spirits. But these 5 high-level corpse puppets have already guarded the tomb of the Ling King for 1,000 years. In addition to the endless stream of profound practitioners, grave robbers, and the other profound practitioners who have been sending over the past 1,000 years, they have long since nourished them to the point where, even after another 1,000 years, they will still be able to continue living." Holy Pirate's voice was not loud, but it traveled clearly into everyone's ears in the silent grave. Nangong Fearen's expression darkened. Qianqian and Wei Beilai had already transmitted their voices through the mercenary group's badges, thinking about retreating quickly. However, this thought had just left his mouth. Yi Fengru, who had been holding Nangong Lin's waist, suddenly turned pale. His body twitched, and he collapsed. His back was against the rock wall behind him, as his 5 fingers clasped in the direction of his heart. That intense pain which started to expand after his heart was pricked by needles attacked him once again. 2 hours had passed. The poison in Yi Fengru's body acted up again in an instant. Qianqian's beautiful brows creased tightly as she half squatted down to support Yi Fengru. A sliver of hatred flashed past her eyes. They had no choice but to retreat. Chapter 825. Yiqing Luo shot a cold glance, and her fingertips moved as she fished out a medicinal pill. I can't move now. Come over to take the medicine. The current Yiqing Luo was equivalent to a mechanism. The minute it was activated, those 5 advanced leveled corpse puppets would pounce towards them without any hesitation. Qianqian was about to head over, but Yi Fengru held her hand tightly as his expression was filled with pain as he couldn't help but moan in pain. I'll go. Nangong Lin looked at Yi Fengru with heartache as she anxiously rushed over. Dashing in front of Yiqing Luo, Nangong Lin grabbed her wrist as she barbarically pulled the medicinal pill out from her hand. Following that, she pushed Yiqing Luo harshly as she turned around and ran towards Yi Fengru. Your mother, Nangong Lin, are you King sick? Yiqing Luo's expression changed drastically as an unconcealable rage surged in her chest. Damn it, don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, only afraid of a pig-like teammate. This Nangong Lin was simply the representative of God among the pig-like teammates. Yiqing Luo had just finished howling when the entire tomb suddenly gave off a loud sound as the ground started to shake continuously. Immediately following that, those 5 upright corpse puppets gave off a mournful howl. The sound traveled extremely far as wave after wave, irritating one's eardrums. Large pieces of rubble from the rock wall continued to fall. Some of them crashed onto the mercenaries' heads, causing a wound as their heads were filled with blood. Due to the fact that they had seen the corpse worms earlier, these mercenaries immediately took out the medicinal powder to stop the bleeding as they carelessly applied it onto their wounds. A thin layer of green mist, visible to the naked eye, gradually spread out in the tomb. The 2 groups of mercenary groups stared blankly at the front, at those 5 corpse puppets which had their hands stretched out facing the top of the tomb. That thin green weapon was being sucked into their bodies at extremely fast speed. The world group quickly retreat. Yiqing Luo shouted out sharply as she grabbed onto the lazy god thief as she speedily moved backwards. The world group's mercenaries subconsciously obeyed her command as they followed Yiqing Luo to retreat. At the same time, those 5 corpse puppets leapt upwards as they speedily attacked towards their direction. Help! There were a few screams. Before the Death God mercenary group could react, the few elite mercenaries standing at the front had already been captured by the corpse puppets. The luminous pearl shone brightly. Everyone could clearly see that the mercenary's hand was a piece of white bone. No one would be able to remain calm when they saw a person being pinned down by a few bones. In particular, after White Bones tightened its grip on the mercenaries, it didn't even take 10 breaths for the green mist to envelop the captive mercenaries. All that was left of the captive mercenaries were one by one. It was directly absorbed by these corpse puppets. In just a few breaths, the Death God mercenary group had lost 8 mercenaries who had fallen from the outside and were injured. Go! Nangong Firen's expression changed drastically as he silently scolded Yiqing Luo for not informing them first, as he immediately asked his group members to leave with Yiqing Luo. However, he did not dare to show his anger on the surface. After all, it was Nangong Lin who caused the 5 high-level corpse puppets to react. Nangong Firen regretted bringing her willful younger sister with her today. Noticing her own brother's gaze, as well as the death god mercenary group's reproachful gazes towards her. Nangong Lin pouted her lips aggrievedly as she sobbed. I didn't do it on purpose. She only hated Yi Qing Luo and casually gave her a push. Who knew? Who knew that it would cause such an outcome? Chapter 826. Big Brother? No. Nangong Lin's expression changed drastically. Her face was filled with grievance and shock. If her father found out about her performance in the tomb, her days in the future would definitely not be so peaceful. However, looking at Nangong Firen's determined expression, Nangong Lin could only swallow her words. In his heart, he hated Yi Qing Luo even more. If it wasn't for Yi Qing Luo, the Death God mercenary group wouldn't have reached the bottom of the tomb. The mercenaries that her brother had spent so much effort to train wouldn't die either. She would not be blamed by her brother. He would not let his father know about this. It was obvious that Nangong Lin had forgotten about it. Everything that had happened in King Ling's tomb was because Yi Fengru wanted to snatch the profound phoenix ring. Hence he had provoked Yi Qing Luo first. Yi Qing Luo and the others fled extremely swiftly, and not too long later, they had already reached the place where they had set fire to those worms. Behind him, the miserable cries of the god-slaying mercenary group could be heard. Yi Qing Luo didn't turn back, and neither did anyone in the world group. The fire in front of him didn't go out just because the insect carcass was burned to death. Instead, it continued to burn, and the flames rose higher and higher, as if it was going to burn the entire tomb. Nangong Firen saw the flickering flames from afar. Zi Qianqian's beautiful face was covered with anger. What a good fire! There was a raging inferno in front and a corpse puppet behind. We will all die here today. This fire was started by Yi Qing Luo. Zi Qianqian naturally vented his anger on Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered, but Kitty Li, who had been following beside Yi Qing Luo, couldn't take it. Kitty Li turned her head and made a funny face at Zi Qianqian. If it wasn't for this fire, you would have been swallowed by the corpse worms just now. Would you even have the chance to talk here? You. Zi Qianqian gritted his teeth as a trace of anger flashed through his eyes. Kitty Li snorted and shook her head, ignoring Zi Qianqian. The corpse puppet behind him was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already caught up. Wherever it passed, the rock walls and gravel cracked. If their legs were any slower, they would be completely absorbed by the corpse puppets. The feather fan in Yi Qing Luo's hand shook and shot out a strand of silver thread, directly piercing into the crevice of the rock wall. She tugged, and after confirming her strength, she leaped. The thin silver threads reflected a cold glint. Following Yi Qing Luo's strength, the silver wire continued to sway, and the place where the silver wire was fixed gave out a creaking sound of crushed stones. Yi Qing Luo borrowed the strength from the surrounding rock walls and the silver wires to swiftly pass through the burning flames. Soon after, a few silver threads pierced into the rock wall one by one. The youngsters in the mercenary group didn't say a word as they followed behind. Yi Qing Luo speedily passed the flames. The world group. You guys? Wei Beilai immediately panicked. He quickly walked forward, wanting to snatch a silver wire. But before he could step forward, he was pushed aside by the world group's youngsters. In a blink of an eye, 90 over mercenaries from the world group had already arrived at the other end of the flames. The 5 corpse puppets had already caught up. Sharp and ear-piercing corpse howls resounded. Nangong Firen threw Nangong Lin to Yi Fengru and pushed them toward the silver threads. Then, he drew his long sword and leaped into the midst of the corpse puppets to attract their attention. Brother. Nangong Lin's face turned pale as she cried out in fear. Before she could struggle to chase after Nangong Firen, her body suddenly felt light as Yi Fengru brought her along and climbed onto one of the silver threads. Zi Qianqian and the others tugged on the silver threads. Seeing that it was as thin as hair, they had some doubts in their hearts. But they used a little more strength to ascertain that it was able to withstand their weight. One by one, they swiftly passed through the fire. There were a few mercenaries who were too anxious and almost fell into the fire. When the last surviving mercenary landed steadily in the middle of the bonfire, Roland's eyes lit up. Chapter 827. Nangong Firen's profound rank was above the Earth profound rank. In the Nirvana realm, he could be considered a high-level profound practitioner at his age. However, he was completely powerless against the 5 corpse puppets with just this bit of ability. The only reason he could hold on for such a long time was because of the longsword in his hand. The longsword should be a weapon above the supreme level and had been stained with the aura of talismans. When the sword swept past the corpse puppets, they would subconsciously avoid the longsword's attack. When the longsword slashed the black robe of one of the corpse puppets, the black robe immediately emitted a puff of green smoke, revealing half of the white bone under the black robe. However, even with the protection of the longsword, it was hard for him to avoid being injured by the 5 corpse puppets by himself when fighting them alone. After the last mercenary crossed the bonfire, he had just heaved a sigh of relief when his arm was cut by the white bone of one of the corpse puppets. Nangong Firen moved quickly. Enduring the sharp pain of his arm being corroded, he raised his sword and swung it. The corpse puppet quickly retracted its white bone. The fragrance of human blood wafted from the corroded arm. The other 4 corpse puppets howled crazily, and a bloodthirsty red light flashed under their black robes. They swarmed toward Nangong Firen in unison. Nangong Firen's heart sank. He glanced sideways at his bleeding arm and vaguely saw his white bone. A chilly yin-chi spread from the wound on his arm to his body. As the corpse puppets approached, Nangong Firen wanted to raise his sword to repel them. However, the chilly yin-chi made him feel cold all over, and his fingers holding the long sword stiffened. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move his arm. The increasingly intense yin-chi was assaulting his face. Nangong Firen closed his eyes in despair. Forget it. It's worth it if I can let my brother survive by sacrificing myself. At this moment, he suddenly felt a grip on his arm. Nangong Firen felt as if something had wrapped around his body. His body suddenly became light, and he was pulled by a force. Big brother. Nangong Lin's sobbing voice rang in his ears. Immediately after, a pair of ice-cold hands directly grabbed his arm. The woman's cold voice rang out, "Don't touch him. Get out of the way." Nangong Firen opened her eyes and saw a pair of emotionless eyes. Those eyes were pitch black and bright, like the resplendent stars in the sky. The corners of his eyes were long and narrow, revealing an extremely enchanting and evil charm. As it spun, it gave off a dazzling flowing light. The streak of light shot into Nangong Firen's heart. For some unknown reason, his heart was beating rapidly, uncontrollably. Even his breathing became stagnant. "Don't you dare touch my brother, you wicked woman. You could have used these silver threads to pull my brother over, but you had to wait until he was injured and on the verge of death before bringing him over. You're trying to kill my brother." Nangong Lin cried and hugged Nangong Firen's waist tightly. Her tearful eyes stared at the corroded wound on his arm with fear, and her tears fell even harder. Yiqing Luo didn't have such a good temper. At this juncture, she still allowed her to throw a little tantrum. Yiqing Luo directly clasped Nangong Lin's shoulder and easily pulled her up, throwing her towards Yi Fengru's direction. "If I had pulled your brother over earlier, your brother's intention of using his own life to fight for time for you to escape would have been wasted." Yiqing Luo's tone was icy cold, as her ridiculing gaze swept past the Azura God Group's mercenaries who were standing by the side with lingering fear, as her lips curled into a cold arc. Chapter 828. When the Death God Group's mercenaries heard that, their faces flushed red as they lowered their eyelids in guilt. Earlier, when their lives were on the line, all they were thinking about was how to survive. They had sufficient time to use the silver thread to cross that pile of raging fire, because their group leader had sacrificed his own life to fight for time for them. Luckily, Yiqing Luo made a move at the last moment. Yiqing Luo didn't have the leisure to watch the Death God mercenary group put on a show of brotherly love. She directly took out a medicine bottle and threw it into Zi Qianqian's hands as she commanded in a deep voice. The smell of blood not only stimulates the corpse puppets, it will also attract the corpse worms. Help him stop the bleeding and expel the corpse qi that has entered his body after avoiding the corpse puppets. Zi Qianqian caught the medicine bottle as her slender brows creased tightly, not liking Yiqing Luo's commanding tone. Just as she was about to retort, she saw Yiqing Luo turning her head over, and the red feather fan in her hands seemed to have merged into one with a raging fire, dancing in joy on her slender, jade-like fingertips. Those few silver threads which were inserted into the rock wall speedily retracted back into the feather fan. Zi Qianqian's words could only be kept in her throat. Clenching her teeth, she squatted down and started to bandage Nangong Firen's wound to stop the bleeding. Those 5 corpse puppets saw all their targets and had already crossed that ball of raging fire as they howled and charged over. Yiqing Luo used the silver threads to swiftly weave a 5 elemental enchantment on both sides of the rock wall. Following that, she took out a round oil lamp and threw it into that pile of fire as she shouted at the same time, "Run!" Although Yiqing Luo was only a Copperplate Mercenary Group's vice group leader. But at this moment, she had already become everyone's backbone. Yiqing Luo gave her command, and everyone speedily turned around and ran without any hesitation. 5 corpse puppets flew forward, and 5 skeletons crashed against the silver threads which had formed the enchantment, blocking them. The corpse puppets howled a few times as their ghastly white bones directly grabbed onto the silver threads. Coincidentally, the round oil lamp, which Yiqing Luo threw, entered the pile of fire. With a rub, the fire surged and directly burned to the highest point of the rock wall. The endless flames swallowed the 5 corpse puppets. After Yiqing Luo threw the oil lamp, she immediately turned around and displayed her smooth footwork, speedily chasing up to the others. Seeing Yiqing Luo following up, Long Yunzhan and the others who were running at the back were relieved. "Is he dead?" Xiao Jin turned his head over and asked Yiqing Luo. The other mercenaries strained their ears to listen as they ran. Yiqing Luo shook her head lightly. High-leveled corpse puppets aren't afraid of ordinary flames burning. God Thief said this before. This kind of high-level corpse puppets have no weaknesses at all. Then what should we do? A trace of fear appeared on Wei Bei's handsome face, and his voice trembled uncontrollably. Are we really going to die here today? As an executive group leader, every word you say is related to the mercenaries' psychological state changes. Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Yiqing Luo didn't answer his question directly, but sneered and blamed him expressionlessly. Wei Bailey's face darkened, and he immediately shut his mouth. This woman was indeed smart and capable, but his mouth and his arrogant attitude was really annoying. Yiqing Luo didn't care about unimportant people's thoughts. She retracted her thoughts as her gaze searched around for a way to avoid the corpse puppets. If they were chased by the corpse puppets, they would appear extremely passive. There was no preparation or chance for them to counterattack. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as her mind kept replaying the places which they had passed by along the way. Even the details of the gravel, vines, and moss were clearly reflected in his mind. Chapter 829. The place which Yiqing Luo had chosen was exactly that stone wall which had Duke Ling's totem. The head of King Ling on the stone wall was the mechanism of the stone wall. As long as he grasped this, he would have enough time to expel the corpse qi from Nangong Firen's body. The group sprinted all the way, and before long, they arrived at the stone wall. Yiqing Luo asked the mercenaries to return to the middle layer of King Ling's tomb, and when she turned her head to take a look, she didn't see any corpse puppets chasing after them. She let out a sigh of relief. High-level corpse puppets were not afraid of fire. However, the corpse puppets were still affected. At the very least, the 5 corpse puppets would not be able to break free from the burning flames for a while. Yiqing Luo was the last to cross over the stone wall, as she speedily pressed on the stone wall. Another deafening rumbling sound rang out, and the stone door that had been opened slowly closed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. At this moment, he couldn't care less about the slippery vines and the moss that made his hair stand on end. Enchanting helped Nangong Firen to sit against the rock wall. Yiqing Luo didn't waste any time as she walked straight to Nangong Firen's side and squatted down as she pulled up his arm, which had been corroded by the corpse puppet. It felt extremely cold to the touch. The slightest touch was like touching ice. It was bone-chilling. Yiqing Luo's expression turned grave as she carefully sized up Nangong Firen's face. Nangong Firen closed her eyes tightly. A thin layer of cold air seeped out of her forehead, and her eyelashes were covered with a layer of white frost. The corners of his eyes were already covered with a patch of greenish-black. The situation was more serious than he had imagined. "Lass, you have to expel the corpse chi for him as soon as possible." Old Man Song's urging voice rang in his ears. "If the corpse aura pervades his heart and corrodes his profound heart jade, then he'll be hopeless." Yiqing Luo took a deep breath. As for the method to expel corpse chi, she had never dabbled in it. It was just that when he was reading the information about the Ling King's tomb last night, he had also thought about the problem of corpse chi. At that time, he only asked Old Man Song about a simple method to prevent the corpse chi from entering his body, but he didn't delve too deeply into it. At this moment, she could only listen to Old Man Song's instructions. Yiqing Luo flipped her palm, and the red feather fan slid into her palm. She gripped the fan handle tightly, and with a flick of her finger, a sharp dagger slid out. She lifted Nangong Firen's arm and was about to cut his wound with the dagger. However, Enchanting grabbed his arm. "What are you doing? Let go." Yiqing Luo knitted her brows and looked at her coldly with a displeased expression. "I really doubt the real strength of the gold medal mercenary group." Her tone was full of disdain and mockery. "Ever since we entered the tomb of the Ling King, your death god mercenary group has caused trouble time and time again. You've dragged down our operation and become a burden on me." What did you say?" Enchanting was so angry that her beautiful face turned red. Her pair of cold eyes were filled with anger. Yiqing Luo gave a light humph. "What I'm saying, you know it clearly in your hearts. If I had known that you were a bunch of trash, I would never have signed that deal with you." These words were completely undisguised disdain for the god-slaying mercenary group. The World Mercenary Group's mercenaries were secretly delighted. They all gave their vice group leaders' words 32 big thumbs up in their hearts. From the start to the end, the god-slaying mercenary group had always placed themselves in a high and mighty position, as though accompanying them into the bottom level of the Ling King's tomb was a condescending act. But in actual fact, the god-slaying mercenary group's performance was totally an existence of a burden. Not only did they not have any practical use, they even kept on creating trouble, which caused people to die one after another. Chapter 830. The underlying meaning was that if Enchanting still wanted to stir up any trouble, she wouldn't bother about the Death God mercenary group's life or death. Enchanting's back instantly fell to chill, and when he met Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes, he felt as though something was strangling his neck, making it hard for him to breathe. Perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's words which made Enchanting sense the seriousness of the situation. Or perhaps it was Yiqing Luo's imposing manner which suppressed Enchanting so much that he had no way to resist. Enchanting's hand stiffly released Yiqing Luo's wrist as he took half a step back. The expression on his beautiful face was congealed and stiff. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze as the blade speedily cut the wound on Nangong Firen's arm, which had already stopped bleeding. The medicinal powder which stopped the bleeding was swiftly dissolved and cleaned up. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she directly cut the wound even bigger. Blood started to gush out immediately. The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with terror. Wandering on the blade's edge for several decades, They had experienced all sorts of dangerous missions, but they had never done such a strange mission. They could kill any demon, magical beast, or mirage beast without any expression. But unfortunately, this time round, they were facing a ghost. For these mercenaries to reach their current position, whose hands weren't stained with blood. Naturally, he was extremely afraid of this kind of thing, especially the fear which the corpse puppets and worms brought to them had already seeped deep into their bones. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's agile actions, no one went up to stop her. At this moment, Long Yunzhan's icy cold eyes swept past everyone without any warmth as he spoke calmly. Do a head count. Xiao Jin and the others responded and started to count the number of people. After around half an instance's time, the few of them counted the number of people. The World Mercenary Group has a total of 96 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently, there are 96 people left, and 3 of them have some external injuries. Death God Mercenary Group has a total of 37 people who entered King Ling's tomb. Currently, there are 13 people left and 5 injured. When the headcount was done, the Death God Mercenary Group's mercenaries' faces flushed red. Even Zi Qianqian, who had his eyes on top of his head, had unnaturally shifted his vision away, embarrassed to look at the World Mercenary Group. From the data, it could be seen who was the real lousy teammate. Long Yunzhan did not use these numbers to speak. He continued coldly. Take advantage of this opportunity to properly nurse your body and strength. Right now, I can't be sure how long this stone wall can stop those corpse puppets. If a battle really breaks out later, you can only rely on yourself. It was rare for Long Yunzhan to speak for such a long time, so the World Group's mercenaries immediately responded in unison. On the Azura Group's side, they looked at each other. Finally, under Yi Fengru's signal, they all sat cross-legged on the ground, closed their eyes, and stabilized the chaotic internal force in their bodies. The World Group, on the other hand, took out the prepared rations and water bags from their space pockets, passing them down one by one as they ate the rations in big mouthfuls. The Killing God Group and a dozen other mercenaries smelled the fragrance and immediately opened their eyes. Even in this kind of atmosphere, the ordinary dry rations that they usually disdained to eat seemed especially fragrant at this moment. 10 over mercenary stomachs couldn't help but let out a growl in response. They had been guarding the World Group outside the tomb since early in the morning and later on in King Ling's tomb, walking for over 2 hours, and having experienced so many hair-raising matters, all their energy had been depleted. Chapter 831. Yi Fengru, who had received the space bag, had a glint in his gloomy eyes. His fingers tightened slightly as he stiffly passed it to the mercenaries beside him. The Death God Group's mercenaries were all stuffing their stomachs without saying a word as their gazes were fixed on Yi Qing Luo, who was still helping Nangong Firen to expel the corpse chi. She was obviously a 15-year-old young lady, looking so immature, and her profound chi was so weak, but she was able to take up such a heavy burden. Everything in the tomb was all because of this young lady. They were lucky enough to survive. They had no choice but to admit that after experiencing these 2 hours of matters, they were only left with a bellyful of admiration towards this 15-year-old young lady. Yi Qing Luo followed Old Man Song's instructions as she swiftly operated the actions in her hands. It was all thanks to the numerous precious medicinal herbs which DMO Xian had prepared in the profound Phoenix Ring. Combined with the medicinal herbs and profound qi, under the dual pressure, that lump of blood which was emitting green fog was finally expelled after 1 hour. Yi Qing Luo used the oiled paper to wrap that pool of blood and wiped it clean without leaving a single trace. Following that, she stood up straight as she casually threw the oiled paper to Zi Qianqian. If you don't want to attract the worms, then take good care of this bag of tainted blood. Saying that, she turned around and walked towards Long Yunzhan's direction. She received the dry rations and water bag from Long Yunzhan and started to gobble it down in big mouthfuls. What should we do now? Long Yunzhan appeared slightly worried as his brows creased slightly as he glanced at the direction of the Death God Group. More than 20 mercenaries from the Killing God group had died. If it wasn't for the fact that they had great teamwork and were able to listen to Yi Qing Luo's instructions at the fastest speed, probably after the Death God group's mercenaries were all dead, the World group would not be spared. If they really followed the plan which they had before coming, which was Long Yunjian and the rest escorting their brothers out of the Ling King's tomb, while Yi Qing Luo followed the Death God mercenaries to find a chance to complete the mission. Long Yunjian would not agree to it no matter what. After all, not only did the Death God mercenaries have an ulterior motive towards Yi Qing Luo, Long Yunjian also doubted the Death God mercenaries' ability. If Yi Qing Luo and the Death God mercenaries were to stay, these people would probably become Yi Qing Luo's burden. Yi Qing Luo wiped the water from the corner of her mouth and placed the water bag back into her space pocket. She squinted her eyes and looked at the strange totem on the rock wall, which looked like it had been splashed with blood. Her slender brows frowned slightly. I'm afraid it's impossible to return the way we came. Yi Qing Luo clenched her fists and immediately shut her eyes. We fell directly from the outer perimeter, and even if we were to return using the original route, we would at most reach the place where we fell. Isn't there another road over there? Let's go that way, and we'll be able to find the entrance to the periphery. Zi Qianqian anxiously spoke. After staying in such a gloomy place for so long, she could no longer endure it. Yi Qing Luo didn't open her eyes as her lips curled into a ridiculing arc. Then go ahead and try. In this tomb of the Ling King, there were not only two mercenary groups. There is also a group of powerful existences hidden in the dark. The commotion caused by that wave of power was enough to cause the periphery of the tomb to collapse. It could be seen that the people from that wave of power should have directly entered from the middle level and reached the bottom level. Only thing was not sure what method that wave of power used to be able to bypass the 5 corpses and the Guardian King corpses to directly enter the main tomb of the Ling King, causing a commotion. Along the way, they didn't meet with any mechanisms or arrays. If Yi Qing Luo didn't guess wrongly, it should have been cleared by that wave of power. So if they were to return using the original route, that route would definitely be filled with mechanisms and arrays. Chapter 832. Especially until now, that hidden force had yet to reveal itself. Yi Qing Luo didn't believe that they had created such a huge commotion, and that force had yet to discover it. Before she could guess the motive of that hidden force, Yi Qing Luo didn't intend to act rashly. If Zi Qianqian wanted to court death, she wouldn't stop him. But those with brains would know that if they chose to try their luck to find the middle-level exit alone, it was simply courting death. As expected, Zi Qianqian shut his mouth. Yi Qing Luo closed her eyes, as though she was taking a nap to recover her energy. In actual fact, she was asking Old Man Song in her mind if there was any way to restrain the corpse puppets. God Thief couldn't explain, but it didn't mean that Old Man Song, who had lived for thousands of years, didn't know. 1 hour, and there's no sound of the corpse puppets chasing after us. Apparently, these corpse puppets are afraid of fire. Yi Qing Luo pondered and said, but ordinary fire. I'm afraid there's no way to burn these 5 high-leveled corpse puppets. Sigh, if I'd let you pass the 2nd level of the Purgatory Tower earlier, you wouldn't be in such a predicament now. Old Man Song sighed helplessly. The 2nd level's reward can restrain the high-leveled corpse puppets? Yi Qing Luo frowned as her eyes shone brightly. But in a blink of an eye, it dimmed down. Challenging the 1st level of the Purgatory Tower would take at least 1 day's time. Those 5 corpse puppets probably wouldn't give her the time to challenge them. And being in the Ling King's tomb, she wasn't at ease to directly extract her soul consciousness to challenge the Purgatory Tower. If any accident happened and her physical body was damaged, her soul consciousness and soul would be damaged. She couldn't take this risk. Whether you can restrain them or not, it's useless to say more now. Old Man Song realized that he had revealed the 2nd level of Purgatory's reward and immediately changed the topic. 5 high-leveled corpse puppets' strength is equivalent to 5 sky mystic overlords. Just based on your strength, to defeat the 5 corpses is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Don't keep saying it's difficult. Give me some useful advice. Yiqing Luo wanted to roll her eyes. At this moment, couldn't Old Man Song be straight to the point? Old Man Song remained silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Actually, there's another way, but your profound jade heart might not be able to support it." Right now, the profound jade heart in Yiqing Luo's heart had already shown some abnormalities. If he forcefully used the power of the profound jade heart in order to defeat the 5 corpses, your target isn't the 5 corpses, but the Guardian Corpse King. Once the 5 corpses die, the Guardian Corpse King will awaken. At that time, without the profound heart jade, you, who are extremely weak, might not even be able to resist a normal corpse puppet. Old Man Song's voice was exceptionally heavy. Yiqing Luo's brows twitched a few times. Say it. The atmosphere was heavy. Another hour passed. Yiqing Luo's eyes were still shut, without any reaction. If it wasn't for the occasional movement of her eyelashes, everyone would have suspected that she was asleep. There were already people on the Azura group's side who felt increasingly terrified and strange under this kind of tranquil atmosphere, and only wanted to quickly leave this place. But unfortunately, Yiqing Luo had no intention to take action. At this moment, a loud and clear howl of a corpse broke the silence. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Their gazes were all focused on the stone wall. Before the crowd could recover from their shock, the tomb began to tremble violently once more. It was accompanied by sharp howls from the corpse hag. It was the turbulence caused by the corpse hag crashing against the stone wall. Everyone's faces were steely green, as one by one, they shrunk towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes as she squinted her eyes and gazed at the stone wall. Chapter 833. Indeed, her guess was right. That blazing fire obstructed the 5 corpse puppets for close to 2 hours. The corpse puppets were refined from dried corpses 1,000 years ago. Other than the black robe, there was only a set of skeleton left. Naturally, they were afraid of being burned by the fire. If it had been an ordinary corpse puppet, that wave of raging fire would have burned it to ashes. Looked like the method that Old Man Song mentioned earlier. She might pong, 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 pong. The sound of the corpse puppets hitting the stone wall became increasingly violent. Every time it shook, it seemed to affect one's heart as it kept twitching. Nangong Lin was so scared that she broke out in cold sweat as her face was filled with tears. Run. Let's run. Who knows when those corpse puppets will break this stone wall open? Nangong Fearin leaned against the stone wall as the back of his head touched those slippery vines, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Hearing Nangong Lin's whimpering, he frowned slightly as he glanced sideways at his arm, which had been bandaged, and his target fell onto Yiqing Luo. After the corpse chi was expelled from his body finally regained its temperature, and his body temperature gradually returned to normal. Moving his arm, there was no pain coming from the wound. Nangong Fearin closed his eyes as the image of Yiqing Luo's stunning face appeared in his mind. She pursed her lips tightly as she treated his wound indifferently. He should say that Yiqing Luo was quick-witted enough to know that under such circumstances, one more person's strength meant one more chance of survival. So she specially used a medicinal powder to numb the pain on his wound. Or should he say that Yiqing Luo was heartless to those who weren't her companions? Once this medicinal powder was used, after the medicinal effect had worn off, he would suffer hundreds of times more pain than now. Seventh sister, even if this stone wall can stop the corpse puppets, but this tomb will collapse anytime. We'd better think of a way to leave this place first. Yifeng Ru's voice revealed his gentleness at this moment. He lowered his eyelids as he gently patted the sobbing Nangong Lin who was in his arms. Everyone's gaze immediately focused on Yiqing Luo. To leave or not to leave, everything depended on Yiqing Luo's decision. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm as her lips curled into a faint cold arc. Can we leave? It's still better than sitting here and waiting for death. Yifeng Ru's gentle eyebrows knitted together. and his eyes flashed with a trace of gloominess. Don't want to sit still and wait for death? Yiqing Luo's gaze moved as she looked at Yi Fengru. Yi Fengru twisted his eyebrows. That gaze made him feel a chill run down his spine. But the arrow had already been knocked, and he could only clench his teeth and nod. The Death God squad cannot lose any more brothers. All right. Yiqing Luo slowly stood up and walked to the front of the stone wall, her gaze calm and indifferent. Then, for the sake of your Azura group's brothers, I need your help. Yi Fengru was startled. The surrounding mercenaries all looked at him with hopeful eyes. Even if he didn't want to, he had to agree. All right, as long as you can guarantee that everyone will survive. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about Yi Fengru's words and directly turned around to look at the mercenaries from both sides and began to instruct them on what to do next. The tomb continued to shake. Gravel fell, and cracks gradually appeared on the ground. The corpse puppet was still hitting the stone wall. On this side, under Yiqing Luo's arrangement, the mercenaries stood in their positions. Just as the last mercenary was about to complete his task, the stone wall suddenly exploded with a loud bang. Countless gravel flew straight towards the mercenaries' faces. The 10 Azura group's members who stood in the front row immediately shut their eyes and moved their heads to one side. Yiqing Luo had instructed them to stand firmly on the spot no matter what. They cursed silently in their hearts if Yiqing Luo had intentionally arranged for them to stand firmly at the front. Chapter 834. The whistling wind kept ringing beside their ears as it swept up the incoming gravel. Bam! The gravel was blown off its trajectory as it crashed onto the rock wall. First row attack. Yiqing Luo's calm, commanding voice was heard beside their ears. The mercenaries instinctively obeyed the command as they raised the weapons in their hands and attacked toward the 5 corpse puppets in front of them. After the rock wall was smashed open, those 5 corpse puppets instantly rushed up. The 5 corpses were burnt by the intense fire, and even though they had swallowed the air freshener pill, that burnt stench was faintly discernible in their noses. Perhaps it was because they had been burnt earlier, which infuriated the 5 corpses. The 5 corpses' howls were mournful and strange, making one's heart tremble. The first row of mercenaries were all members of the Azura group. Recalling Yiqing Luo's serious instructions, even though they were terrified, they still went up to attack and started the mission which Yiqing Luo had given them. The few of them worked together, but there was no way to win the advanced corpse puppets. After they wrapped the things which Yiqing Luo had passed to them onto the 5 corpses, they swiftly retreated. The second row of mercenaries immediately went up to them. The corpse puppets had strong explosive power, but they were after all refined by a race. Other than exterminating all the living creatures in the tomb and merging them into one with themselves, they didn't know how to think about other things. Because of this, these mercenaries listened to Yiqing Luo's instructions and wouldn't go head-on against the corpse puppets. Only when the front row attracted the attention of the corpse puppets, the back row swiftly wrapped the things onto the 5 corpses. Following those, the third row. Fourth row. By the time all the mercenaries had completed their mission and retreated to one side, they saw a black shadow leaping over the top of the tomb. It was Yiqing Luo. She stood in the middle of the 5 corpses as her eyes were filled with a chilly glint. The black outfit wrapped around the lady's slender petite figure, and the cherry blossom on her arm was extremely eye-catching. Her slender fingers held a red feather fan, and while she didn't dare to move her fingertips, a gush of powerful aura exploded from her. Huff! Huff, huff! A strong gust of wind swept everything in the tomb. It was clearly only the energy of a low-level profound practitioner, yet the imposing aura it emanated and the profound energy that swept out from the feather fan was so sharp, unstoppable, and intimidating. Yiqing Luo's footwork changed rapidly, not daring to make any mistakes. The feather fan in his hand was constantly fluctuating with profound qi. She guided the 5 corpse puppets to move in her designated position. Those 5 corpse puppets, after chasing Yiqing Luo for several rounds, started to howl in anger to demonstrate their might. The eerie white bone skeleton fingers turned into sharp weapons as it directly struck towards Yi Qing Luo from all directions. Vice Commander Qing Luo, everyone was on tenterhooks as they broke out in cold sweat while looking at Yi Qing Luo, even holding their breaths. There was no way to hide. Yi Qing Luo half squinted her eyes as her feather fan flipped over her fingertips, and like a ball of moving, raging fire, it floated into the air. The corners of her mouth curled into a cold smile, and a vortex of raging flames shot down from the feather fan. It looked like a fire dragon with its mouth wide open. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo's delicate body swayed. The footwork under her feet became increasingly fast and strange, making people only able to see an afterimage, only to see Yi Qing Luo stepping on the corpse puppet, leaping up. With a somersault, she was already standing on top of the opened feather fan. It was as if she was suspended in midair on top of the flame, blooming a gorgeous flower. That fire dragon opened its mouth and swiftly swallowed the corpse puppet completely. Yi Qing Luo landed lightly on the ground, stretched out her 5 fingers, and the feather fan returned to her palm. Chapter 835. That's right, stare. Those 5 corpse puppets, which were shrouded in black robes, all raised their heads at this moment. Under the black robes, there were pairs of faint green glows. They couldn't see their eyes or eyeballs. Only 2 balls of faint green light were embedded on those eerie white bones. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Qing Luo retreated to the mercenary group's side as she turned her head towards Yi Fengru. Second brother, release your heart flame. Standing by the side, Yi Fengru, who didn't understand what Yi Qing Luo needed his help, was stunned. Heart flame? Yi Qing Luo nodded calmly. Release your heart flame. The purer the better. The more vigorous the better. Yi Fengru's brows creased tightly, not understanding the meaning of Yi Qing Luo's words. Before he could ask, those 5 corpse puppets which had dispersed the fire dragon leapt towards their direction furiously. 12 balls of faint green light whizzed towards their faces, bringing along a gust of chilly air. Yi Fengru was so shocked that he retreated several steps as his heart pounded and his legs turned soft as his body kept shivering. Heart flame, by his ear, was Yi Qing Luo's anxious roar. Yi Fengru didn't dare to ask what was the purpose of releasing her heart flame, as he subconsciously used his profound Jade Heart's energy to condense a ball of heart flame as he shot it towards the corpse puppets. At the same time, Yi Qing Luo's heart flame was also released. Those 5 corpse puppets which pounced over were still on the original spot as they continued to struggle but were not able to move an inch, as though they were imprisoned on the original spot, unable to move. It's Silver Threads. It's the World Group's Vice Group leader's Silver Threads. Some mercenaries pointed out the reason why the corpse puppets were unable to move. The crowd followed the glow from the luminous pearl and looked over. They saw those 5 corpse puppets' black robes were all stuck with silver threads which glowed with a cold glint. The silver threads intertwined and penetrated through the surrounding rock walls, forming a silver thread cage which bound the corpse puppets tightly, totally unable to move. Following the direction of the silver threads, the last place which the silver threads bound was that feather fan in Yi Qing Luo's hands. The mercenaries suddenly realized the reason why Yi Qing Luo gave each row of mercenaries a piece of silver wire to wrap around a corpse puppet's body and immediately change to the next row. And earlier, Yi Qing Luo used her strange footwork to constantly change her direction, leading the corpse puppet to scurry around, in order to fix the silver threads on the corpse puppet onto the 2 sides of the rock walls and to form an invisible cage. The Killing God group's mercenaries' hearts were filled with shock, which made their admiration towards Yi Qing Luo unable to be expressed in words. A 15-year-old girl actually possessed such a sharp mind and strength. At this moment, these mercenaries didn't bother to ask what Yi Qing Luo needed Yi Fengru's heart flame for. Even Zi Qianqian remained silent and did not speak. The power of the heart flame was only a flame spark used by alchemists to refine medicinal pills. It could only be used to refine medicinal pills. It was useless for other things. Yi-Ching Luo wanted to use her heart flame to burn the corpse puppet. This thought was soon confirmed. After Yi-Ching Luo and Yi Feng Ru released the power of their heart flame, Yi-Ching Luo's entire body seemed as though it was enveloped by a ball of blazing fire. But in an instant, that powerful energy had completely fused the two's heart flame's energy, directly crashing onto the corpse puppet which was bound. Everyone's vision fell onto the corpse puppet's side. After the heart flame fell onto the corpse puppet's body, it instantly engulfed the 5 corpse puppets. In the air, there was an extremely unpleasant burnt smell. No one discovered that the powerful energy earlier was shot out from Yi-Ching Luo's wrist. Chapter 836. The corpse puppets were afraid of fire. Ordinary flames were unable to incinerate the corpse puppets. But as an alchemist, she could use the power of the heart flame condensed from the profound jade heart and borrow old man Song's power to force the heart flame out of her body, and then she could incinerate the corpse puppets. The heart flame was indeed used to refine pills. To other living things, it had no use at all, but to the corpse puppets, it was extremely useful. She only needed to treat the corpse puppets as pills to refine. But the current Yi-Ching Luo, releasing the heart flame to incinerate the corpse puppets, the consequences were very serious. Old man Song didn't recommend her to do so, but the arrow was already on the bow. Yi-Ching Luo had no other choice. Her profound jade heart had already reacted. If she released the heart flame to incinerate the corpse puppets, it was very likely to cause damage to her profound jade heart. The power of the heart flame was in fact the power of the jade heart condensed from the profound jade heart. If Yi-Ching Luo forcefully expended the power of the profound jade heart, once it was damaged, she was very likely to become an ordinary person who had lost her profound jade heart. In the Ling King's tomb, once she became an ordinary person and was so weak that she had no ability to retaliate. There was no way she could survive. This was the reason why Old Man Song asked Yi-Ching Luo to consider carefully. Because of this, she specially called Yi Feng Ru, who was also an alchemist. Although Yi Feng Ru was a dark alchemist, but his heart flame was still used to refine pills. The 5 corpse puppets kept brandishing their claws, howling in pain, trying to escape the binding of the silver thread, trying to escape the burning of the heart flame. They didn't have any rationality, didn't know how to think, but facing the feeling that was about to disappear from this world, they still had. But alas, no matter how their sharp bones tried to tear that cold silver thread, but no matter how they tried, they were unable to move the silver thread at all. The intensity of the heart flame was getting fiercer and fiercer, with a visible glow directly burned to the top of the rock wall. Increased the strength of the heart flame. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes, looking at the struggling corpse puppets. Although in pain, but not completely burnt out, she gritted her teeth and berated in a stern voice. This degree of fire was probably not enough to incinerate the 5 advanced corpse puppets. Lulu, prepare to release the heart flame. The last step, all depends on you. Yi-Ching Luo turned her head and looked at Bei Ming Lulu, who was already prepared. Bei Ming Lulu nodded her head vigorously. Within the azure dew bracelet, Old Man Song raised his voice and growled, "Girl, you're too reckless. If this goes on, before the corpse puppet is completely incinerated, my profound jade heart's energy will be depleted, and I won't be able to release the power of my heart flame." The current situation didn't allow Yi-Ching Luo to decide whether she was willing or not. At the very least, right now, she could still guarantee the survival of her group of brothers by forcefully consuming the power of the profound jade heart. Otherwise, when the power of the heart fire could no longer be released, all of them would be fused by the enraged corpse puppet. Yi Feng Ru's forehead was already dripping with cold sweat. Hearing Yi-Ching Luo's words, he almost couldn't catch his breath. If this goes on, our profound jade heart will exhaust its energy. After the power of the profound jade heart was exhausted, it would take at least 3 to 5 days to recover. Yi Qing Luo dared to use such a risky method? Didn't you say that for the sake of our brother's survival, you would do anything? Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a smirk of ridicule. Why? You can't even do such a small thing. At this moment, if one were to take a closer look, one would be able to tell that Yi Qing Luo's eyes were hiding a smear of strenuous effort and stubbornness. Only when Yifeng Ru heard Yi Qing Luo's ridicule, his attention had already been diverted. He secretly clenched his teeth and could only release the power of the heart flame even more ferociously. Chapter 837. In her chest, there seemed to be a raging fire, incessantly burning. Wave after wave of scorching sensation whizzed towards her heart. Yi Qing Luo's breathing became heavy. She clenched her teeth, forcing herself to take a deep breath, trying hard to maintain the momentum of the heart fire. Lass, you can't continue to be brave. Let the divine doctor from the Beiming family come over and take over. This profound jade heart of yours can no longer be used up. Old Man Song's tone was solemn as he berated her. Yi Qing Luo herself also felt it. The place where the profound jade heart was hidden was completely scorching hot, as though it was about to expand and explode. That profound jade heart was also trembling nonstop, constantly sending out warnings. It wasn't that she wasn't willing to stop, but now was a critical juncture. If she stopped, she would definitely not have the energy to support another breath, to release the heart fire. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath. Sweat drenched her black hair, sweat dripping down from her forehead, wet her eyelashes. In the haze, she saw the corpse puppet that was restrained by the silver silk cage had already lost the strength to struggle. That wide black robe gradually turned into ashes. That ghastly white skeleton gradually turned into ashes. She fiercely took a deep breath, once again activated the profound jade heart's energy, increasing the intensity of the fire. Lulu, she called out. Beiming Lulu was already prepared, immediately releasing the power of the heart fire, making the last wave of heart fire attack. After Beiming Lulu's heart fire merged with the other 2 balls of heart fire, with a whoosh, the intensity of the fire once again rushed to the top of the rock wall. Hua! A crisp shattering sound came from Yi Qing Luo's body. When the 5 corpse puppets were burnt to ashes, Yi Qing Luo's body fell softly to the ground at the same time. The profound jade heart couldn't hold on, directly shattered in her heart. Yi Qing Luo could even clearly feel that the 2 halves of the profound jade heart gradually disappeared, without a trace of breath. Pain immediately attacked her entire body. Yi Qing Luo coughed lightly, her petite body lying on the ground, trembling slightly. Yifeng Ru also went limp by the side, panting heavily, wiping off the sweat on his head. Finally, dealt with the 5 corpse puppets. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. Yifeng Ru was sweating profusely, panting heavily as he turned his head to look at the girl beside him. Yi Qing Luo's condition seemed to be much more serious than his. His face was deathly pale, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. She trembled and lay on the ground powerlessly. Even her breathing was so light that it seemed like it would stop in the next second. Yifeng Ru's handsome face revealed a faintly discernible expression. His eyes slowly narrowed, and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes for a moment before disappearing. Ajan! Yi Qing Luo's voice was extremely weak as she slowly raised her hand, wanting to ask Long Yunjian to carry her away. She knew that after losing the profound heart jade, she would become an ordinary person. However, he didn't expect that he would be so weak. She couldn't even move her body. Now even a Tom, Dick, or Harry could easily take her life. Yi Qing Luo gave a bitter smile as her lips twitched. Long Yunjian's heart had been hanging by a thread as he kept an eye on Yi Qing Luo's condition. The minute he heard Yi Qing Luo calling his name, he immediately walked over. Only, the next second, Long Yunjan's expressionless face turned steely green and black. Yi Fengru. Long Yunjan's icy cold voice sharply called out Yi Fengru's name. Yi Qing Luo was in a daze, almost fainting. Suddenly her body felt heavy, and she hazily opened her eyes, meeting Yi Fengru's gloomy eyes. Chapter 838. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her charming eyes flashed with a biting cold glint. What do you want to do? The corner of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up, his gloomy eyes filled with madness. The Death God mercenary group's purpose for appearing here. Aren't you very clear? For the Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo's complexion instantly turned paler. Yi Fengru wanted to take advantage of her weakness to steal the profound Phoenix Ring. He didn't want to think too much about it. Yi Fengru had already used his actions to confirm his thoughts. Yi Fengru grabbed Yi Qing Luo's arm tightly. His fingers nimbly pinched the profound Phoenix Ring on her index finger and tugged hard. Despicable. Yi Qing Luo gritted her teeth and spat out 2 words. She didn't have the slightest bit of strength to struggle. The sharp pain in her heart made her lose the strength to struggle. This was the profound Phoenix Ring that DMO Xian had given her. No one could take away the profound Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo bit her lower lip tightly, trying to use the pain to raise her spirits. Long Yunjan wanted to step forward, but Yi Fengru used Yi Qing Luo's life as a threat. The mercenaries of the World Mercenary Group didn't dare to act rashly. The current Yi Qing Luo, anyone could tell that she was so weak that she had no ability to retaliate. Their hearts were burning with anxiety, and their eyes were filled with hatred and resentment as they looked at Yi Fengru. This was the kind of person who burned the bridge after crossing the river. Yi Fengru kept twisting the profound Phoenix Ring. Yi Qing Luo's fair fingers were already covered with circles of red marks from his rough actions. But the profound Phoenix Ring was still firmly on Yi Qing Luo's index finger, and there was no way to remove it. Seventh Sister, I advise you to be tactful and hand over the profound Phoenix Ring. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heartless. Yi Fengru's eyes were filled with madness. This kind of expression, this kind of words filled with threat. However, his tone was still as gentle as ever. It made one's hair stand on end. The Phoenix Ring was a divine artifact. After a divine artifact recognized a master, no one other than a master could use it. Just like the profound Phoenix Ring, other than Yi Qing Luo and DMO Xian, no one else could take the ring off from her hands. Yi Qing Luo no longer had the energy to speak, as her misty eyes couldn't conceal the sharpness in her eyes. Yi Fengru snorted, and a dagger appeared in his hand. Yi Fengru, if you dare to touch a single strand of Qing Luo's hair, I will immediately exterminate your Azura group. Long Yunjan's deep and cold voice was hurriedly heard. The corners of Yi Fengru's mouth curled up in a crazed smile as he stared at the profound Phoenix Ring. As long as I can get the profound Phoenix Ring, so what if I kill everyone? As long as you still care about this beautiful and moving seventh sister, you won't dare to make a move against me. Yi Fengru had grasped the world group's sentiments and loyalty very clearly. As long as they held onto Yi Qing Luo, those youngsters wouldn't dare to act rashly. There's still poison on your body, and without Qing Luo's antidote, you will act up again in 2 hours' time. Xiao Jin shouted angrily, silently cursing Yi Fengru for being despicable and shameless. Yi Fengru's mouth twitched in disapproval. Seventh Sister's heart isn't hard enough, after all. That pill, just now, was the antidote. He chuckled softly. The dagger was already close to Yi Qing Luo's index finger. Seventh Sister, second brother will give you one last chance. If you insist on not handing over the profound Phoenix Ring, second brother will not go easy on you. If she couldn't take off the profound Phoenix Ring, then she would directly chop off Yi Qing Luo's finger. She could still take the profound Phoenix Ring away. An icy cold touch was felt from her index finger. Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes as her lips moved coldly, spitting out 2 words at him. Pooey. A mouthful of saliva was directly spat on Yi Fengru's face. Chapter 839. Fengru. Stop it. Nangong Firen held onto her arm weakly as she struggled to stand up. However, Yi Fengru seemed as though he couldn't hear anything from the outside world as his gaze turned sharp and his actions didn't hesitate at all. Roar, roar, roar. At the critical moment, a sharp and piercing beast howl broke the silence of the tomb. They saw a black shadow leaping past everyone's eyes. Under the illumination of the luminous pearl, everyone could only see that sharp fangs, glistening with flowing light. Red blood slowly dripped down along the teeth. Sliding down the throat, it was extremely enchanting. A miserable shriek was heard from Yi Fengru's mouth. In everyone's line of sight, a huge leopard with shiny black fur and a body as black as ink appeared. It opened its mouth, and its sharp fangs viciously bit onto Yi Fengru's wrist. That pair of brown beast eyes were opened wide like bronze bells as it was filled with the leopard's fury. It was Shiju. The world group's mercenaries heaved a sigh of relief as their suspended hearts slowly sunk. Yi-Ching Luo's lips twitched helplessly. Her Shiju had rushed over to save her. The minute they entered the tomb, she released Shiju and went around to check on the surrounding situation. But before Shiju returned, the tomb collapsed, and they fell into the middle layer of the tomb. She had not expected Shiju to follow her scent and find its way over. Wait a minute. Found its way over? From the periphery of the tomb, it directly came to the bottom layer, which meant that Shiju had found the exit to leave the tomb. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Let go. Beast. Yi Fengru's miserable shriek was still ringing beside her ears. His wrist, along with that dagger, was bitten by Shiju. The dagger broke into pieces as it fell onto the ground. Unfortunately, Yi Fengru's wrist was bleeding continuously as the intense pain stimulated his consciousness. Sometimes it clenched its teeth tightly, cutting his skin and stirring his meridians. Sometimes it loosened its teeth and used that smelly tongue to lick the blood that seeped out. Heaven, the world group, let's discuss this. If this goes on, Yi Fengru's hand will be crippled. Nangong Firen's voice trembled as she used a negotiating tone. Let Yi Fengru go, and our Azura group will give you an explanation. Qiao Jin spat fiercely. Earlier, when that scoundrel Yi Fengru wanted to chop off Qing Luo's finger, why didn't he think that Qing Luo's hand would be crippled? Even if Shiju didn't bite off Yi Fengru's hand, the coin dart in my hand wouldn't let him go. These words were echoed by the world group's youngsters. Just based on what Yi Fengru had done to Yi-Ching Luo earlier, even if it were to die 100 times, it would not be enough to vent his anger. Shiju, kill him. That's right. Eat him alive and swallow him into your stomach. The mercenaries of the world group roared with righteous indignation. Shiju's copper bell-sized eyes blinked as it looked at Yi-Ching Luo, as though it was asking, "Can I really eat him up?" His brown eyes were filled with innocence. His mouth was biting on his bloody wrist. No matter how one looked at it, it was strange. Yi-Ching Luo wanted to laugh, but she didn't have the energy to do so. She just moved her eyes lightly, indicating for it to let go of Yi Fengru. Shiju obediently bit Yi Fengru's arm and threw it towards Nangong Firen's direction. Following that, it lowered its head and picked up Yi-Ching Luo's petite body as it leapt back to Long Yunzhan's side. Long Yunzhan swiftly caught Yi-Ching Luo. Wei Ming Lu squeezed forward and helped to take Yi-Ching Luo's pulse. Chapter 840. The minute she said that, Bai Ming Lu stopped. The Death God mercenary group had been eyeing Yi-Ching Luo covetously by the side. She couldn't say anything about Yi-Ching Luo's current situation. Returning to her brother's side, Yi-Ching Luo had already relaxed as she shut her eyes weakly and leaned into Long Yunzhan's arms. "Ching Luo, why are you still talking about sibling ties at this moment?" Just let Shi bite his hand off. Xiao Jin's eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Yifeng Ru, who was being supported by Wei Beilai. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her breathing slowly lengthened. Her slender long fingers lightly scraped the back of Long Yunzhan's hand. Long Yunzhan instantly understood what Yiqing Luo was thinking. His face turned black as his gaze turned chilly as though it was covered with frost. His voice was chilly as though it was wrapped in ice. Death God mercenary group, if you don't want to die, stop the bleeding immediately. Nangong Firen was stunned when he heard that as his pupils grew wide as he turned his head and shouted anxiously, "Quickly stop the bleeding for Yifeng Ru. Be careful of the corpse worms." Everyone was instantly enlightened. Why did Shiju only bite Yifeng Ru's wrist and didn't bite it off or directly tear Yifeng Ru into pieces? It was because of this reason. In King Ling's tomb, blood must not be seen. If Yifeng Ru's wrist was bitten off, it would definitely spill a lot of blood. If it attracted the corpse worms, under the situation where there was no flame, they would be swallowed by the worms directly, leaving nothing behind. So Shiju only cut the skin on Yifeng Ru's wrist and kept on licking his blood. Xiao Jin clenched his fists as he clenched the gold coin darts tightly. After we get out, kill Yifeng Ru however you want. For now, let's spare his dog life. Long Yunzhan's expression was still indifferent, but his eyes were overflowing with a thick, chilly intent, mixed with a murderous aura which was waiting to be unleashed. This is the consequence of messing around. Even if you die here, you deserve it. His cold voice was filled with anger. His pair of clear blue eyes that were as clear as lake water stared coldly at the person in his arms. He was really angry. If he wasn't angry, the usually cold Long Yunzhan would absolutely not say such sarcastic words. Yiqing Luo knew that she was in the wrong and simply didn't have any energy to respond. How is she? Long Yunzhan's cold eyes suddenly looked at Beiming Lulu. Beiming Lulu shuddered as she coughed lightly and replied via the mercenary group badge. Qing Luo, her profound heart jade seems to be gone. Yiqing Luo's pulse was in a mess, to such an extent that she couldn't detect the slightest fluctuation of profound qi. This could only prove that Yiqing Luo had forcefully exhausted the power of her profound heart jade, causing it to overload and directly shatter within her body. This kind of thing was not unheard of. The profound heart jade was gone, which meant that the current Yiqing Luo was an ordinary person who didn't even have the ability to move. In this kind of strange and gloomy tomb, an ordinary person who did not even have the strength to walk was extremely dangerous. Long Yunzhan's eyes grew colder. Yiqing Luo, who was in his arms, couldn't help but shudder. Long Yunzhan's eyes were covered with a layer of extreme coldness, as if it was covered with a thin layer of frost. He slowly squatted down and placed Yiqing Luo by Shiju's side, nestling in between Shiju's soft fur. His cold voice seemed to be faintly discernible as it fell into everyone's ears. In order to save everyone, in order to let everyone survive, Qing Luo risked her own life. But what did she get in return? His pale, thin lips gently pulled into a faintly discernible, austere arc, raising his eyes. His azure blue eyes were fixated on Yifeng Ru. Long Yunzhan slowly walked towards him. What I got in return is your Azura group burning the bridge after crossing the river, repaying kindness with ingratitude. Chapter 841. That long sword was extremely horrifying. The blade of the sword was faintly discernible with sparkling light patterns that looked like pieces of scales. The icy aura was powerful and majestic. It was as though a ball of cold current was spreading from Long Yunzhan's feet. The mercenaries from the Azura group were shocked by this aura as they stared at the long sword in his hand. Their legs were already trembling uncontrollably. All of you deserve to die. Long Yunzhan's cold words came out from his thin lips. His long sword danced and swept up sword waves. Profound qi and the cold current intertwined as he slashed down. The entire tomb trembled under this powerful aura. Pieces of gravel fell one after another. The continuous tremors had already overwhelmed the tomb. The sound of gravel falling to the ground and the cracking of the ground overlapped with each other. It was obvious that the tomb was about to collapse again. Leader of the World Group, I'm afraid this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Nangong Firen felt a chill down his spine when he met that pair of azure eyes. He felt suffocated. Nangong Firen was fearful of this young man who looked no more than 20 years old, but had such an imposing aura. Long Yunjian really wanted to kill them. There was no other emotion in Long Yunjian's eyes. There was only a thick, killing intent. Long Yunjian ignored Nangong Firen's words. The sword chi was majestic, and the sword wave that slashed down left countless cracks on the rock wall. Nangong Firen held Nangong Lin in one hand, and Yi Fengru in the other, as they fled pathetically to avoid Long Yunjian's attack. More than 10 mercenaries from the Azura group turned pale as they were overwhelmed with shock. This powerful aura was definitely not something that an ordinary mystic realm cultivator could release. Long Yunjian's profound rank was at least above Earth profound rank 6, or even higher. Otherwise, a group of Earth profound realm cultivators like them wouldn't be intimidated to this extent. Fengru, why are you so determined to snatch the profound phoenix ring? Zi Qianqian was also frightened by this frigid aura that felt like she was in an ice house. Her beautiful face was filled with displeasure. From the beginning, Yi Fengru was the one who wanted to snatch the profound phoenix ring, leading the Azura God Group's 30 over elite mercenaries under the pretense of accepting the outer mission of the Ling King's tomb. In actual fact, snatching the profound phoenix ring from Yiqing Luo's hands, even though the ring belonged to the Overlord. But after all, this divine relic had already signed a blood contract with Yiqing Luo. Other than Yiqing Luo, no one else could remove the profound phoenix ring. Moreover, in this kind of dangerous situation, they needed to rely on Yiqing Luo to have a chance to leave the Ling King's tomb. Why? At this moment, Yi Fengru had to make a move. Wasn't this forcefully breaking the hearts of the two mercenary groups that had finally prepared to cooperate with each other? It wasn't just Zi Qianqian who didn't understand what Yi Fengru was thinking. Even Nangong Firen, who had been Yi Fengru's classmate for several years, couldn't figure out what Yi Fengru was thinking. I was the one who stole the ring, and I was the one who threatened Seventh Sister. If you want to kill me, come to me alone. Yi Fengru panted heavily. His gloomy eyes stared unblinkingly at Long Yunjian, who was filled with killing intent. He patted Nangong Firen's shoulder, indicating for him to be released. Fengru. Nangong Firen's brows creased slightly as he shouted out Yi Fengru's words. Following that, he deliberated over his words. There are many worms in the Ling King's tomb. If we were to fight here, it would only cause both of us to suffer. In the end, we will be devoured by the worms. Let's talk about everything after we leave the Ling King's tomb. Long Yunjian's long sword, which was covered with scales, kept buzzing as it vibrated gently in his palm. His azure blue eyes were filled with rays of blue light, which contrasted with the blue flowing light of the long sword, which made the coldness and callousness in his eyes even more obvious. Azura God Group's words turned a deaf ear to them. Chapter 842. Yiqing Luo knew that Long Yunjian was angry, and it wasn't a light one. Perhaps it was her overly weak look, which was totally different from her usual arrogant and valiant self, which agitated Long Yunjian. His mind was filled with thoughts of killing those mercenaries from the Azura group. Even the divine dragon sword, which represented the identity of the dragon clan, was taken out. Wouldn't that expose his identity? Moreover, what Nangong Firen said was right. If they were to fight here, blood would definitely be spilled. If the worms were to be attracted and devoured everyone, wouldn't her effort of exhausting her profound Jade Heart's energy and causing the profound Jade Heart to shatter be in vain? No matter what, she must first stop Long Yunjian from going crazy. Yiqing Luo borrowed Shiju's strength to slowly straighten her body. Her fingertips moved slightly as she tried to touch the profound phoenix ring. She should be glad that after the profound Jade Heart shattered, the The contracted profound phoenix ring could be casually opened without the use of profound energy. Lass, your current body can't take your torment anymore. Old man, Song warned her. Yiqing Luo had already taken out a pill to replenish her energy as she pinched it gently as her lips curled. She had to stop Long Yunjian even if she couldn't take it anymore. Long Yunjian's rage was because of her. Only she could stop Long Yunjian. Otherwise, if this carried on, not only would there be the danger of attracting the worms over, Long Yunjian's identity as a human dragon might also be exposed. I won't mess around, don't worry. Yiqing Luo glanced at Shiju. Shiju understood as it stretched out its huge claws to receive the pill from Yiqing Luo's hand and sent it to her mouth. After taking the pill, Yiqing Luo closed her eyes. Only when the medicine took effect did she feel that her breathing was a little smoother. Her forelimbs gradually regained their strength. Yiqing Luo moved her arm, although it was still sore and there was a faint stabbing pain in her heart, but luckily it was still bearable. She stood up and gazed towards Long Yunjian's direction. Old man Tsong sighed lightly, knowing that he had no way to stop Yiqing Luo's decision. This lass had been putting on a brave front ever since they entered Ling Wang's tomb. And it was because of this Yiqing Luo that made him willingly stay by her side. Yiqing Luo saw Long Yunjian raising his long sword, slashing towards those people from the Azure God group. His movements were swift, and she was just about to head up to call out to Long Yunjian. Suddenly, her eyes flashed, and she quickly retreated a few steps, hitting the rock wall. It was just a simple action, but it was already strenuous for her. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she raised her eyes to look at the figure dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe. It floated in the air, its feet not touching the ground. Its red robe fluttered, even though there was no wind. And what attracted Yiqing Luo's attention the most was its pair of scarlet red eyes. Humans, so many delicious humans. It curled its lips slightly, raised its hand to cover its chin, and said in a greedy tone. The words that came out of his mouth were like a saw that had not been used for many years, hoarse and ear-piercing. Every word made one's hair stand on end. Yiqing Luo's vision was fixed on its hand. No, that couldn't be called as a hand. It was like the 5 corpses, a white skeleton without roots. Just a slight movement, and one could hear the creaking sound of the joints twisting. Qing Luo, Vice Group Leader. The World Group's mercenaries couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts as they shouted Yiqing Luo's name with their foreheads covered in sweat. Chapter 843. Corpse King. Yiqing Luo's tone was calm. The person in front of him was dressed in a bright yellow brocade robe. His face was as pale as a corpse's, and his forehead was covered with a thin layer of ice. His pale, bloodless lips parted slightly, revealing his sharp fangs. Scarlet eyes, bizarre fangs, and a cold aura emanating from his body made him look like a zombie. The 5 corpses had already been burnt to ashes. The only thing that remained was the corpse puppet that looked like it wasn't an ordinary corpse puppet. Other than the Corpse King, there shouldn't be anything else. The Corpse King cackled, revealing a cold and treacherous smile. It was you who awakened this king. As expected, it was the zombie King Guardian. Yiqing Luo's heart sank, but the expression on her face didn't waver at all. Seeing that Yiqing Luo wasn't the least bit afraid, Corpse King squinted his scarlet eyes in interest. Your body has the smell of burning 5 corpses. You've burnt my guards. So what if it's me? Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly. Want to kill me to avenge your guard? The moment he said that, the World Group's mercenaries all held their breaths. At the other end of the Azure Group, their calves and abdomen were already unbearably soft, and their hearts were greatly shocked. This was the zombie King Guardian, the Corpse King that guarded the Tomb King. They were not on the same level as the 5 corpse puppets. Just now, Yiqing Luo was too insolent. He clearly didn't even have the strength to stand firmly, yet he still used such an arrogant tone to speak to the Corpse King. If they angered the Corpse King, what would they do if they were implicated? Yiqing Luo seemed as though she hadn't noticed those people's gazes as her charming eyes swirled with a sliver of dark glint. If it wasn't for me, you might not be able to wake up even if you slept for thousands of years. I'm the one who woke you up, so you should be more grateful to me. The members of the Killing God group were so nervous that their hearts almost jumped out of their mouths. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Was there something wrong with the vice leader of this world group? Provoking the zombie king like this? Was he trying to enrage the zombie king, causing the zombie king to fly into a rage and directly destroy all of them? Ha 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 ha! Hoarse laughter burst into the ears. Everyone was so shocked that their hearts started to tremble along with the frequency of the laughter. Interesting little girl. The Corpse King laughed. As he was laughing, his figure suddenly flashed and a gloomy cold breath whizzed towards Yiqing Luo's face. In a blink of an eye, King Corpse's pale face appeared right in front of Yiqing Luo. His speed was extremely fast, and the chilly wind that was stirred up caused everyone to shiver involuntarily. Yiqing Luo stared at the Corpse King, which was just inches away from her. That pair of scarlet eyes was filled with a faintly discernible ridicule. The chilly air blew on her cheeks. Yiqing Luo shuddered as goosebumps rose all over her body. The corpse puppet couldn't breathe, but the cold air coming from its body was unbearable to ordinary people. Yiqing Luo only trembled and very quickly concealed the flustered look in her eyes as she raised her head calmly. Could it be that Corpse King feels that I've said something wrong? Yes, you're absolutely right. The Corpse King nodded, his lips curling up. It's just that, before awakening this king, did you ask this king whether or not I was willing to awaken? It was a corpse puppet which was in deep sleep. Even if she asked, it wouldn't reply. The Corpse King's body leaned forward even more. That pale face was like a human skin as it stuck directly to Yiqing Luo. Chapter 844. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as her peripheral vision glanced towards a certain direction as she pursed her pink lips tightly. I can burn your guards. I can also burn you. Ha! Ha! Corpse King slowly shifted his body as his scarlet eyes looked as though he was looking at a fool. Just based on you, a waste without any profound energy, you can burn me. That ghastly white bone was raised up high as a bone joint stretched out and pointed directly at Yiqing Luo's heart. Through her clothes, Yiqing Luo could feel a gust of cold air as it instantly enveloped her. She lowered her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered slightly as she gazed at that piece of white bone at her heart. It seemed as though the next second, that white bone would turn into a sharp blade as it directly pierced into her heart. Corpse King had long seen that her body was in poor condition. Thinking about it, the current her breathing was messy, and even though her 4 limbs had been replenished with Essence Chi pills, it was not as powerful as before. Not to mention the powerful Corpse King. Even an ordinary person would be able to see her current condition. No profound energy? Zi Qianqian murmured these few words as her beautiful eyes suddenly lifted up and congealed towards Yiqing Luo. Your profound energy, right? They couldn't sense any presence of profound qi from Yiqing Luo's body. No wonder after burning the 5 corpses, Yiqing Luo seemed as though she had no energy to move at all. Even Yifeng Ru was unable to resist. Initially, they only thought that Yiqing Luo had exhausted quite a bit of profound qi and temporarily had no energy. Yiqing Luo, who had always been the backbone, had lost her profound qi, which was equivalent to they were going to die in King Ling's tomb. The 10 over death god mercenaries instantly turned pale as they looked at each other in dismay. From the other party's eyes, they could see the other party's fear and terror. Following that, almost at the same time, the few mercenaries tacitly made the same action. They took the opportunity when Corpse King's attention was attracted by Yiqing Luo to quietly get up and speedily sprinted towards the exit of the middle layer of the tomb. Just as they passed by the extremely fast, huge stone, suddenly a ball of remnant shadow directly flashed past their eyes. They heard a hoarse, cold voice, as though a devil from hell had come to claim their lives. Under this king's eyes, you still want to escape? Those mercenaries had no time to react at all. He only felt a bone-piercing coldness, and before he could even scream, he suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. A few Azura group uniforms fell to the ground. As if they were touched by the 5 corpses, they were instantly killed. Not even their bones were left. The other mercenaries who also wanted to escape immediately knelt on the ground. Yiqing Luo looked at the corpse king, which disappeared in the blink of an eye and appeared several steps away, as she secretly gave a bitter smile. After losing the profound heart jade, she was indeed a cripple. He couldn't even see through the zombie king's movements. This bitter smile froze at the corner of his mouth when he saw the corpse king slowly turn around. The undead king raised its 2 skeletal arms without any concealment, and the eerie white bones were being covered with a layer of human skin at a speed visible to the naked eye, gradually forming a hand with skin and flesh. Her skin was fair, slender, and glowed with a sparkling luster. Everyone's expression changed drastically. This corpse king could also fuse with humans, turning the human body into nutrients for his own body. Following this, the corpse king seemed to be extremely satisfied with his own pair of hands, as he looked back and forth for a long time, as the red glow beneath his eyes flashed, as though blood was flowing. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. The corpse king still didn't intend to give up. Did he want to treat all of them as food? While the Death God mercenary group was on tenterhooks, they saw the corpse king's gaze firmly falling onto Yiqing Luo. Chapter 845. Saying that, corpse king's figure swayed as it speedily closed in on Yiqing Luo. A pair of squinted scarlet eyes were filled with evil and maniacal malevolent laughter. Its 5 fingers opened wide as it directly locked onto Yiqing Luo's neck. Get lost! A deep roar was heard, and immediately following that was a sword wave which was suffused with blue light, wave after wave. Corpse King's reaction was swift as it turned around and raised both its arms as its sleeves fluttered, setting off a strong cold current which covered the sword wave which was coming towards it. 2 gushes of energy collided. In a split second, the entire tomb started to crack. Following that, they saw Long Yunjian holding his long sword as he speedily leapt to Yiqing Luo's side, pulling her into his embrace with one hand. With a leap, he speedily retreated to Shiju's side. The World Group's mercenaries regained their senses as they flew up and leapt in front of Corpse King as they cooperated with one another to block Corpse King's attack. Be careful, you're not its match. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled when she saw that, as she raised her voice and howled loudly. After that howl, she leaned against the rock wall weakly as she laid limply. Long Yunjian caught hold of her just in time. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and grabbed Long Yunjian's lapel as her slender brows creased tightly as her charming eyes were filled with panic. They're not the Corpse King's match. The minute they merge with it. Qing Luo, have a good rest. Xiao Jin's roguish voice was heard. He tossed the gold coin darts as his fingertips speedily shot out several gold coin darts towards Corpse King's face. When those gold coin darts flew past Corpse King's face, it was avoided by Corpse King acutely. Following that, a continuous barrage of gold coin darts flew over. At the same time, Li Mao's agile kitten-like body climbed up the surrounding rock walls as she speedily neared Corpse King's direction. While running, she didn't forget to reveal a crafty smile towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Sister, you've always been protecting us. Now, it's our turn to protect you. As she neared Corpse King, Li Mao's slender hand suddenly transformed into a huge black cat claw as it struck Corpse King's back with a palm strike. Corpse King's eyes were filled with anger as its scarlet eyes flashed with a devilish glint. It gave out a hoarse sneer. All of you are here to die. This king shall fulfill your wishes. Boom. Kitty Lee's claw landed on thin air. 5 deep claw marks appeared on the ground. The Corpse King's eyes flickered, and he turned around to grab Kitty Lee behind him. Kitty. The other mercenaries immediately rushed forward. Yes, all along, It had been Yi Qing Luo who had risked her life to protect them. In order to protect everyone, he didn't even hesitate to destroy his profound heart jade. Now, it was up to them to fight in order to protect Yi Qing Luo. A strong, murderous aura shot out from the mercenaries' eyes, and their xian-qi broke out of their bodies. In an instant, the entire tomb was stirred up by raging waves of profound qi. The tomb was already unable to bear the weight. Huge rocks kept falling down, and the tomb was on the verge of collapse. The mercenaries of the Azura group could not stand steadily. They supported each other and wanted to take the opportunity to leave. Nangong Firen's expression was cold as he commanded in a dignified manner, "Brothers of the God-slaying team, charge." The commander's orders must be obeyed, even if he was afraid and uneasy, even if he wanted to run away. However, before their commander ordered them to retreat, they would fight until the very last moment. This was the mercenary spirit, but as the God-slaying team's previous actions had angered the Corpse King, they were forcefully merged into one body. Including Nangong Firen and the others, there were only 7 of them left. After they joined the battle, they didn't have much use. There were a total of 100 over people, but under the circumstance of ganging up on the Corpse King, they didn't gain any advantage at all. Chapter 846. Long Yunjan's eyelids drooped as he calmly looked at Yi Qing Luo, who was leaning on Shi Ju's back, and his vision fell on Shi Ju. After looking for some time, he held his long sword and charged towards the Corpse King. The long sword sparkled with a faint blue sword glow, and those layers of scales were like water ripples, sparkling under the clear and crystalline light. A strong wave rose, directly attacking towards the Corpse King. Murderous aura filled the sky, filling the entire tomb. In the Corpse King's eyes, these 100 over people were merely its food. The food's resistance was merely an appetizer. Dense murderous aura? The Corpse King's scarlet eyes were filled with interest as its hoarse voice roared. "How dare you?" Its brocade robe swelled up even more, and its body instantly released a gush of strong cold current, directly sweeping towards its back. Long Yunjan's expression didn't change as his figure leapt down from the rock wall, raising his long sword and waving it once again, striking towards the Corpse King. "Human, your taste and theirs are different." The Corpse King licked its pale lips, its bloodless face faintly revealing a few white bones. "If I were to integrate you into my body, it would definitely be a very good nutrient." The more it said, the more the greedy glint in its scarlet eyes became brighter and brighter. It once again released its cold air, freezing the entire tomb's cold current, wantonly flying about. And the long sword in this human's hand. This sword, it had already noticed it earlier. There was a burst of magical power which enticed it to completely absorb the energy on the sword. Human it wanted. The sword it also wanted. The Corpse King exerted some more strength, and the strong cold current instantly covered the surrounding rock walls with frost. That slippery vines and moss had already frozen into frost. Long Yunjan was expressionless as he waved his sword and directly slashed the frost, forcefully pressing it down. The tomb shook once again, and a thunderous loud sound was heard. The frost which was sealed in front of the Corpse King's face completely cracked. That long sword had already directly pressed against the Corpse King's face, just a few fingers' distance away. The Corpse King's expression was icy cold as it suddenly stretched out its slender fingers, clamping onto the long sword in front of it. The faint blue light flashed slightly, like a current, as it wrapped around the Corpse King's fingers. The Corpse King frowned. The electric current seemed to want to injure the palm it had just formed. With a sizzling sound, the electric current became even more intense. The Zombie King did not panic. He held the hilt of his sword with one hand and allowed the electric current to engulf his palm. He waved his hand slightly. It seemed like a casual wave of his hand. Long Yunjan's tall body was flung away. He flipped a few times in the air and landed 5 or 6 meters away. Long Yunjan only managed to steady himself after a long while. A mouthful of fresh blood was stuck in his throat, and he nearly spat it out. He used his sword to support his own strength and forced himself to stand up. "Leader, Ajan!" the few of them exclaimed and looked at Long Yunjian worriedly. Xiao Jin thought about it, but was stopped by Long Yunjian. "Ajan!" Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she felt a stifling feeling in her chest, making it hard for her to breathe. She had been learning by the ghost doctor's side for such a long time. She was also a medicine refiner, so she knew a few things about medicine. She naturally saw through Long Yunjian's current state. He was wounded by the Corpse King, and the injury wasn't light. If this carried on, the group of them would become the Corpse King's food sooner or later. No one would be able to escape. Long Yunjian looked at the Corpse King expressionlessly, as his breathing became heavier and heavier, as though he had sensed Yiqing Luo's calling. He raised his eyes, and his azure blue pupils met directly with Yiqing Luo's eyes, which were filled with worry. The corners of his mouth curled up, and a faint smile appeared on his usually cold face, as if he was comforting her, saying 3 words. Chapter 847. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been struck by something fiercely. She opened her mouth, tried to call Long Yunjian back. Shiju knew the exit to leave the tomb. As long as Long Yunjian brought his brothers and left with Shiju, perhaps they might be able to survive. But just as she was about to open her mouth, Long Yunjian had already shifted his gaze and charged towards the Corpse King once again. At the same time, Yiqing Luo felt that scorching feeling in her heart, gushing up again. She instantly lost all her energy. Her entire body went limp as she collapsed. Roar, roar. Shiju worriedly rubbed its head over as it bit Yiqing Luo's collar. Yiqing Luo clutched her heart as her face turned extremely pale. Her eyes seemed like a heavy stone, pressuring her till she had no strength to open them. There seemed to be something in her heart, constantly tearing her heart apart, ripping open her heart and filling it with countless raging flames. This feeling, the moment her profound jade heart shattered, she also felt it. It was as if a ball of raging flames wanted to incinerate her entirely. In the haze, Yiqing Luo seemed to have heard a hurried cry of alarm, as well as Shiju's warning howl. There was a dangerous aura. It was gradually nearing, although she had lost her profound jade heart. But her powerful perceptive ability still existed. Yiqing Luo's heart pounded wildly as she wanted to open her eyes. But at the next moment, a wave of intense, scorching heat wave enveloped her heart instantly. The scorching, uncomfortable feeling made Yiqing Luo's body couldn't help but curl up. She could even clearly feel that her collar had been picked up by Shiju, flipped in midair, and landed on Shiju's back. The intense cold wind blew against her cheeks, but it was still unable to extinguish the raging fire in her heart. Last, in a haze, she heard Old Man Song's voice, calling out to her consciousness continuously. Yiqing Luo responded softly. "This is your chance." Old Man Song's voice sounded extremely hazy and fuzzy. Yiqing Luo listened for some time, but only heard a few fragmented words from him. Yiqing Luo forcefully held on to her consciousness as she organized Old Man Song's words. "Lass, don't want to be your companion's burden. Don't want your companion to sacrifice to protect you, right? Girl, if you don't wake up, your companions will die at the hands of the Zombie King. None of them will be spared. This old man can only save you." After the last sentence was organized, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly twitched fiercely. His entire body tensed up, and his breathing became rapid. No, if the World Group's brothers were all dead, how could she live alone? She was the one who brought the brothers into the tomb of the Ling King. She was the one who brought everyone into danger. If everyone else had died, and she was the only one who had survived, what was this? If you don't want to live alone, then work hard to open your eyes. He wanted to open his eyes, but they were as heavy as lead weights. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open them. The more it was like this, the more intense the burning sensation in his heart became. What kind of pain was this? No, it didn't hurt. The flames that were burning his heart didn't cause him any pain. All that was left was the heat that burned his heart. Feel your profound heart jade. Call out to your profound heart jade. You can definitely do it. This is a chance. The voice became more and more indistinct. By the time Yi-Ching Luo listened carefully, there was no longer any sound. Profound jade heart? Hadn't her profound jade heart already shattered? And she could still call out to her profound jade heart? Who cares? Old Man Song wouldn't lie to her. Chapter 848. Profound Jade Heart. She needed the profound heart jade. He needed a powerful, profound jade heart. She wanted the world group brothers to survive together with her. This belief was shouted from the bottom of his heart over and over again. His heart, to be more precise, an extremely intense wave of heat suddenly surged from his heart, where the profound jade heart was being nurtured. That wave of heat rushed into her limbs and bones. It was as if he wanted to sweep through every meridian in her body. Yi-Ching Luo seemed to have sensed a gush of powerful energy surging towards her body continuously. She clenched her fists tightly, and the burning pain on her face gradually faded. Right at this time, Shiju's rapidly advancing body paused. Yi-Ching Luo felt her body being flung out. Soon after, there was the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. This fling nearly flung the heat wave out of his body as well. Shijue, even if Yi-Ching Luo didn't open her eyes, she could roughly guess. The Zombie King had set its target on her. In other words, ever since the 5 corpses died and the Zombie King was resurrected, the Zombie King's target had always been her. Although Shiju was a low-level mirage beast, it was still a cub after all. Its speed was naturally not as fast as the Corpse King. However, after fleeing for a while, it was slapped away by the Zombie King on the spot. It was fine. As long as Shiju wasn't fused with the King Corpse, there was still time. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Ching Luo. A few hurried voices were approaching. Long Yunjian and Xiao Jin rushed in front of her. In the face of the Zombie King's wave after wave of attacks, they were completely fearless. One by one, they constantly consumed their Xian Qi and brandished the weapons in their hands, wanted to leave at least a small wound on the Zombie King's body. No matter what, they had to protect Yi-Ching Luo, who had always been protecting them. The Corpse King's pale lips sneered, not taking this group of food seriously at all. His sleeves fluttered, and an earth-shattering cold current surged. Numerous cold currents directly pressed towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. Block it. Protect the vice leader. The mercenaries roared again and again in a deafening voice filled with conviction. These young mercenaries' profound chi rose steadily as all of them stood in front of Yi-Ching Luo. Bang, bang, bang. With a few collisions, groups of mercenaries were overturned. They crashed into the surrounding rock walls. It caused the entire tomb to shake, and it was on the verge of collapsing. The Corpse King's scarlet eyes coldly swept over the food, his hoarse voice sharp and ear-piercing. Come, this king will absorb all of you into his body. Those 100 over mercenaries who were sent flying onto the ground weren't intimidated by the Corpse King at all, as they immediately stood up and pounced forward, trying to help Yi-Ching Luo to block it. Get out of the way. Her cold voice was somewhat enchanting. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This voice, it was Yi-Ching Luo. The mercenaries' gazes immediately congealed towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. The petite body that had been flipped over by the Zombie King's cold current was now floating steadily in the air. A bewitching red light enveloped her whole body. Ching Luo, Xiao Jin clutched his chest and suppressed the urge to spit out blood. He raised his head and stared at the woman who had almost crashed into the top of the cliff. Long Yunjian pressed his sword against the ground and breathed heavily. He placed a hand on Xiao Jin's shoulder and said, "Don't go over. She doesn't have a profound jade heart. How could she still float in the air? What's going on with this red glow? Without a profound jade heart, can she even display her profound chi?" The Death God mercenary group's mercenaries opened their mouths in shock. They stared dumbfoundedly at that lady who had her eyes tightly shut and her jet black hair fluttering in the wind. Chapter 849. Forehead. The mercenary's vision instantly congealed towards Yi Qing Luo's forehead. Under the red light, a few patterns faintly appeared on the lady's forehead, like a pattern outlined by the red flowing light. Flickering, it became more and more eye-catching. Following that, under the flickering light, the pattern on the lady's forehead was completely revealed in front of everyone's eyes. That was a dark pink pattern with a few petals lingering on the center of her forehead, like a blooming cherry blossom. Right? It was cherry blossom. Her forehead didn't have any decals at all. This must have grown out suddenly? What's going on? Don't tell me she's a demon? Otherwise, without a profound heart jade, how could she possibly float in mid-air? The Azura group's mercenaries had already started to panic as they looked at the lady in mid-air in terror. That cherry blossom under the red light became more and more obvious. Long Yinzhan and the others were stunned. After being together with Yi Qing Luo for such a long time, they had never seen such a pattern on her forehead. Apparently, these patterns had a great relationship with that bewitching red glow on her body. Only Yifeng Yu, after seeing that pattern, his face instantly turned pale, as his eyes faintly flashed with astonishment and disbelief. How could it be? How could it be his sister? Corpse King squinted his scarlet eyes as he gazed at the pattern on Yi Qing Luo's forehead for some time, as he sneered, "Little lass, don't tell me that you think you can play this little trick and deceive this king? Obediently become a part of this king's body." Saying that, Corpse King's slender fingers turned into ghastly white bones, like a sharp hook, as it pressed towards Yi Qing Luo. Just at this moment, the red glow on Yi Qing Luo's body exploded. That cherry blossom pattern on her forehead was like an excited flame. Yi Qing Luo's curly long eyelashes moved as her tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Boom! A loud sound was heard as Corpse King's attacking body fell heavily onto the ground. The sound of bones breaking was ear-piercing, like a saw. Pale face, wide open scarlet eyes, tightly stuck to the ground, as those pieces of gravel scratched his skin. No blood flowed out, just a torn wound, revealing the ghastly white bones. This scene made the surrounding mercenaries dumbfounded. What happened? They hadn't even seen Yi Qing Luo make a move, and the Corpse King had mysteriously fallen onto the ground? The Corpse King on the ground let out a furious roar. He slammed the ground and was about to stand up. A powerful aura instantly broke through the dense cold air in the tomb. A powerful pressure replaced it. The king of corpses lying on the ground was suppressed to the point that it could not resist at all. "If you want my woman to become a part of your body, you'll have to see if I agree to it first." An extremely dignified voice, mellow like fine wine, lingered in everyone's ears. As the clouds parted, a man in a luxurious purple robe appeared, as if he was riding on an auspicious cloud. His black hair fluttered gracefully on his shoulders like a cloud of smoke. It made his peerless face look even more exquisite and devilish, especially that pair of peach blossom eyes that were long and narrow like obsidian. They overflowed with a cold light as they moved about, causing one's entire body to tremble with just a glance. He is, it can't be. Why is he here? I'm not dreaming, am I? What did he say earlier? Death God mercenaries drew in a breath of cold air as they stared at that purple-robed man in disbelief. Whereas the world group's mercenaries all heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he was here, all the problems would no longer be a problem. Chapter 850. His purple robe fluttered, and in an instant, the man had already stepped to Yi Qing Luo's side. Stretching out his arm, he stably brought the young lady's petite body into his embrace. Ah, Xian. Yi Qing Luo was in a daze as she felt a familiar warmth and that calming sandalwood fragrance slowly lingering around her nose. She couldn't help but took a deep breath as she buried her head in his embrace and shut her eyes. His heart, which was hanging in the air, finally calmed down. In her mind, she recalled that scene earlier. It was at that moment just now. The instant the king corpse attacked, Yiqing Luo felt her own profound jade heart's heart was like a raging inferno, surging and rushing over explosively. She could even feel a gush of powerful energy filling her limbs and bones. Just as she opened her eyes and was about to counterattack the corpse king, DMO Xian was like a god as he descended from the sky. It was also at that instance that her entire body's energy seemed to be stripped away as she fell from the sky. Right now, she had no way to think about where that power came from. She could only wait till they left the tomb before asking Old Man Song. "Sorry, I'm late." DMO Xian gently caressed her pale face as his eyes were filled with tenderness. He held her slender waist tightly as the both of them slowly landed on the ground. DMO Xian stabilized her body. His 5 fingers slowly covered Yiqing Luo's chest. A ball of profound qi was injected into her heart. "I'm not by your side, and you kept making me worried." DMO Xian was helping her to reconstruct her profound jade heart while grumbling at her. It wasn't hard to hear the heavy pampering and tenderness in his words. Luckily, he came in time. From afar, he sensed the lifting of the seal. DMO Xian rushed over and outside the tomb. He sensed Yiqing Luo's presence. He knew that the lifting of the seal this time had something to do with Yiqing Luo. DMO Xian was naturally very clear about the dangers of Ling King's tomb. Based on Yiqing Luo and the rest's ability, it was not enough to leave the tomb alive, especially when Yiqing Luo's profound jade heart was formed by him. The moment it shattered, he sensed it. Immediately, he panicked and rushed into the tomb without caring about anything else. Finally, he made it in time. Yiqing Luo leaned lazily in his arms as her eyes were half closed. After her body was filled with profound qi, she had finally regained some strength. My profound jade heart had some strange movements. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and rubbed herself against DMO Xian's embrace. "I thought something had happened to you." DMO Xian's hand, which was wrapped around her waist, pinched her waist harshly as he rebuked in anger. "Who's the one who's in trouble now? Who are you worried about?" Yiqing Luo knew that she was in the wrong as she replied in a soft voice, It's my fault." Luckily, the Overlord rushed over in time and saved my life. "I'm extremely grateful. Only devote yourself to me." DMO Xian raised his brows. His long and narrow eyes outlined an arc. Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red, thinking that other than flirting with her, this man could only flirt with her. As soon as they met, he took liberties with her. One had to know that the current location, background, and atmosphere were not suitable for flirting. The Death God mercenaries were completely dazed. This man dressed in purple robe, although they had never seen him before, but they had absolutely heard of his reputation. Purple robe, ring, a face of peerless elegance, sparkling peach blossom eyes, all of them. Overlord, the legendary master of the Imperial Palace, the world-famous D Zun. He and the World Group's vice group leader were actually in such a relationship. No matter who it was, they could tell that when DMO Xian looked at Yiqing Luo, his expression was so gentle and pampering. Chapter 851. HHHHH. HHHHH. The king corpse let out a sharp, low roar as its hand on the ground gradually turned into white bones. Its scarlet eyes widened as its white bones curled up as it pounded the ground heavily. "What are you? How dare you treat this king like this? This king will devour you." The atmosphere was instantly destroyed. DMO Xian shot a cold glance over as he ridiculed with his rosy, thin lips. "Based on you? You dare to devour this lord?" He scoffed disdainfully as he gazed at the person in his arms. Looking at her pale face, under the formation of the profound jade heart, it gradually regained its color as his expression turned gentle. The king corpse's body instantly froze on the spot. Just one look, and it made a dignified king corpse so terrified that it was unable to move. This seemingly young and handsome man actually possessed such powerful strength. There weren't many people who could defeat it 1,000 years ago, not to mention 1,000 years later. The king corpse was terrified and wanted to escape, but its body seemed to be bound by an invisible force. It had no chance to move at all. Hurt my little Luo, causing her profound jade heart to shatter. Little brat, you still want to escape? DMO, Shin, chuckled softly as the corners of his eyes curved into a narrow arc. Little brat. The death god mercenaries' expressions changed as they stared aghast at the king corpse lying on the ground. The world mercenaries' mouths twitched as they stared sympathetically at the king corpse lying on the ground. In DMO Shin's eyes, the 1,000-year king corpse was just a little brat. In the entire world, probably only DMO Shin dared to say that. Sure enough, the king corpse's deathly pale face was immediately filled with sullen anger. Its scarlet eyes were like a poisonous snake, filled with humiliation and anger. It formed a sharp contrast with the high spirits just now. DMO Shin retracted his gaze as he didn't continue to care about the struggling and roaring king corpse. He calmly continued to form the profound jade heart for Yiqing Luo. Time passed by in a blink of an eye. The two mercenaries held their breaths as they waited in rapt attention. Group leader, are you all right? Suddenly, in the crowd, Long Yunzhan's body, which was supporting his sword, swayed slightly and straightened up. Long Yunzhan slowly shook his head, one arm supporting himself against the rock wall, his long eyelashes covering his azure blue eyes. Xiao Jin frowned slightly, feeling that he was a little strange. Just as he was about to call Baiming Lu to check Long Yunzhan's pulse, he suddenly sensed a powerful, profound energy covering the tomb. Everyone's line of sight immediately shifted to the direction where the profound qi had come from. It was DMO Shin and Yiqing Luo. DMO Shin's palm that was covering Yiqing Luo's chest flashed a ball of soft fluorescent light and disappeared in a flash. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and clearly sensed a palm-sized jade-shaped qi overflowing from her heart, wrapping around her heart and automatically repairing the injuries caused by the profound jade heart shattering. Strong, profound qi spread throughout Yiqing Luo's limbs and bones at an extremely fast speed. Power! He was finally back. Yiqing Luo clenched her fist, feeling the profound qi rushing into her body as a sweet smile appeared on her lips. She raised her eyes and looked at DMO Shin with a warm smile, just as she was about to express her thanks. But she heard DMO Shin staring at his own hand for a long time as he sighed softly and immediately threw out a sentence. It's still a little too small. Yiqing Luo was momentarily dazed as she blinked her eyes, not understanding the meaning behind his words. But seeing DMO Shin waving his hand, which had helped her form the profound jade heart earlier, he clicked his tongue as his eyes were filled with a teasing smile. Yiqing Luo's face flushed red with a whoosh. Damn it, stinky hooligan. You shouldn't flirt like this when picking up a girl. She lowered her eyes as she stared at her chest. Chapter 852. DMO Shin narrowed his long peach blossom eyes as he gazed deeply at her protruding chest. After some time, he shook his head helplessly, although he didn't say a word, but everything was expressed in silence. Damn it, was he despising her flat chest? So what if she was flat chest? At least she had saved the country's fabric. The thoughts turned from embarrassment into anger as it surged in her mind. By the time she regained her senses, Yiqing Luo suddenly spat out. Save what fabric? In the modern world, she was at least a 36B. Looking at Yiqing Luo's flustered and exasperated look, DMO Shin couldn't help but burst out laughing. This smile was peerless. Even the surrounding cold air seemed to be covered by this extremely pampering smile, which was like a spring breeze. Everything in the surroundings had lost its color. Zi Qianqian's beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't believe that the legendary cold and emotionless, bloodthirsty overlord would be so handsome. That peerless looks, even she couldn't help but develop feelings of adoration. Based on what? Based on what? Everything belonged to Yi Qing Luo, especially when she saw the overlord looking at Yi Qing Luo, that pampering and gentle gaze. Looking at the overlord's slender fingers brushing past Yi Qing Luo's face. His actions were gentle, as though he was holding the most precious treasure in his hands. That jealous feeling in his heart couldn't be concealed as it surged up. Based on what Yi Qing Luo's appearance, she became the main character. Everyone in the Azura group site was attracted by Yi Qing Luo. Even the incomparably noble overlord treated Yi Qing Luo with such gentleness. She was obviously the high and mighty fairy Qianqian, the #1 beauty who was praised by the men. Whereas on the other side, the world group's mercenaries were already used to this helplessness. Showing off dog food depends on the occasion. The overlord is here. Shouldn't we hurry and leave this godforsaken place? After we get out of here, we will disappear on our own accord, so that you can have a good time. This was Mo Xian's power. His appearance made these mercenaries, who were originally on tenterhooks and extremely nervous, completely put their hearts at ease. One by one, they started to tease him. From his tone, it was obvious that he was very familiar with the overlord. Nangong Firen was the most severely injured. Supported by Nangong Lin, she was barely able to stand. She stared unblinkingly at the golden couple embracing each other warmly. Something seemed to be tearing her heart apart. Mo Xian. Zun. He had never expected that the world mercenary group and the overlord would actually have such a relationship. Of course, Nangong Firen wouldn't take Yi Qing Luo's effort for granted just because of her relationship with Mo Xian. Yi Qing Luo's ability and personality made him extremely impressed. This mysterious woman. In this world, only the miraculous Mo Xian was worthy of her. Nangong Firen smiled bitterly and looked away. Nangong Lin frowned when she saw the expression on Nangong Firen's face. Nangong Lin could more or less guess the thoughts of her brother, who had always doted on her. His vision shifted from his brother to Yi Qing Luo. A sinister and vicious intent flashed across his eyes. Just as the atmosphere was relaxing, that king corpse which was pressed onto the ground and unable to move used all its energy to struggle. The human palm which had just been formed had gradually melted and turned into ghastly white bones. If it continued to be suppressed by this energy, its body would definitely turn into a pile of ghastly white bones. No, it would absolutely not allow its human body to turn into ugly white bones. Chapter 853. Not knowing why, King Corpse suddenly felt a burst of strong energy forcefully surging into its body. That feeling of being restrained by Mo Xian instantly became lighter. King Corpse's scarlet eyes flashed as it didn't bother about the source of this energy, as it immediately turned around and speedily ran towards the direction of King Ling's main tomb. Before it left, it didn't forget to shout angrily, "This king will absolutely not let you off." King Corpse's speed was extremely fast, and in just a blink of an eye, it had already passed through the 5 corpse coffins. Mo Xian's expression changed slightly as his brows rose slightly. It actually still has the energy to retaliate. King Corpse's ability was definitely not comparable to Mo Xian's. Moreover, King Corpse was arrogant. If it really had the energy to struggle free from Mo Xian, then it definitely wouldn't be pressed onto the ground forcefully, eating a mouthful of dust. How did King Corpse suddenly have the energy to struggle free from Mo Xian's restraints? Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she didn't have the mood to flirt with Mo Xian anymore, as she immediately grabbed his wrist and chased after King Corpse. If King Corpse still had the chance to resist, these people would be in hidden danger. Under Mo Xian's intentional suppression, King Corpse's ability to maintain its human body had already disappeared. it would definitely fuse with more food to replenish its body's nutrients. Just as the two of them turned around and speedily chased up, suddenly they heard overlapping cries of astonishment behind them. "Qing Luo, be careful. Group leader, what are you doing?" The few of them shouted in panic in unison. Yi Qing Luo sensed something amiss, and at the same time as Di Mo Xian, she speedily retreated as she raised her hand to counterattack. But she saw the one who was stabbing toward her heart was dressed in black, his black hair combed neatly, azure blue eyes without any emotions. Long Yunzhan. Yi Qing Luo was astonished as she didn't manage to react in time. She only saw that faint blue glow, aiming right at her, stabbing speedily. Long Yunzhan? Why was it him? Because of their trust towards Long Yunzhan, Yi Qing Luo and Di Mo Xian, who had extremely strong perceptive senses, didn't discover the abnormality behind them. When they saw that the other party was Long Yunzhan, the both of them were stunned. However, it was this momentary daze that caused the two of them to react. They wanted to dodge, but was too late. Qing Luo, sister. Just as the long sword was about to pierce into Yi Qing Luo's heart, two figures had already sped over. Only the sound of a sword piercing into flesh could be heard, and a petite figure limply hung down. Xiao Yi. It was Yin Xiao. The moment they realized that Long Yunzhan had launched an attack towards Yi Qing Luo, Yin Xiao Yi and Kitty Li almost leapt up at the same time, blocking in front of Yi Qing Luo. At the last moment, Yin Xiao Yi pushed Kitty Li away. He forcefully took the blow. Yi Qing Luo's heart twitched fiercely as her eyes widened, looking at that petite figure blocking in front of her. Long Yunzhan's expression did not change. Seeing that he had stabbed the wrong person, he did not hesitate to pull out his sword. Blood splattered on the ground. Yi Qing Luo's entire body was trembling, as she was only in time to hug the fallen Yin Xiao Yi. "You're fine." Yin Xiao Yi pinched herself in pain. Her pretty face was pale, without any color of blood. That pair of eyes, which were usually lively, seemed dull and lifeless. Kitty Li, who was pushed away, stabilized her footsteps as she turned her head to see Yin Xiao Yi weakly closing her eyes as she stared at Long Yunzhan. Her eyes were filled with rage. Joining Devil Class, joining the World Group, was all because of Yi Qing Luo. Towards this Long Yunzhan, she didn't have any deep feelings. Not comparable to Yi Qing Luo, not comparable to Yin Xiao Yi and the others' feelings towards Long Yunzhan. Chapter 854. However, Long Yunzhan acted as if he didn't hear anything. He held onto the blue sword that was dripping with blood as his body swayed slightly. His expressionless face was still devoid of emotion. Even when he saw Kitty Li's claws grabbing at him, he still stood there indifferently. His azure blue eyes did not even blink once. Instead, she slightly raised her neck and stared straight at Kitty Li. Yi Qing Luo carried Yin Xiao Yi as her brows creased as she looked at Long Yunzhan. She couldn't believe that Long Yunzhan would attack them. Raising his head, he saw Long Yunzhan raising his head like he was waiting for death. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased tightly as she vaguely sensed something strange. "Kitty, stop." The black cat claw that was about to land on Long Yunzhan's body stopped. The strength of the cat's paw was extremely great. After it was intercepted, it set off a huge gust of wind that blew Long Yunzhan's hair. His azure blue eyes were still without the slightest ripple. He was as cold and indifferent as ever. But no matter how Yi Qing Luo looked at it, she felt that something was amiss. "Sister, why did you stop me?" Kitty Li clenched her cat claw tightly and retracted her hand. The black cat claw had already transformed back into a slender human wrist. She pointed at Long Yunzhan and said angrily, "This person betrayed us. Let me kill him to avenge Sister Xiao Yi. If I kill him, will Xiao Yi wake up?" Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly. Seeing that she managed to persuade Kitty Li, she lowered her eyes and looked at the pale Yin Xiao Yi in her arms. Yin Xiao Yi's eyes were closed, and she was in a coma. Her voice was a little hoarse and choked. The long sword is poisoned. Xiao Yi is poisoned. The moment he said this, the mercenaries' faces turned ashen as they stared at Long Yunjian in astonishment. At this moment, no one could believe it. His guild leader had actually attacked his own people, and he even used such a vicious method. The sword was poisoned. Just by looking at Yi Qing Luo's expression, she knew that this kind of poison was something that even she could not cure. Even Yi Qing Luo was unable to detoxify this poison, so it was obvious how dangerous this poison was. Yes, the sword was poisoned. Moreover, she had to return to the academy to seek help from the ghost doctor for this poison. With her ability, it was impossible for her to refine the antidote. Looking at Yin Xiao Yi, who had already been corroded by the poison, her entire face was pale and she was in a coma. Yi Qing Luo's heart was in pain. Kitty Li's charming face turned frosty. Her usual loveliness was nowhere to be seen. She turned her head and glared fiercely at Long Yunjian. Hand over the antidote. Long Yunjian acted like he didn't hear anything. His eyes were empty as he looked forward. He stood on the spot without moving, like a puppet that had lost its soul. It was extremely strange. Hey, I'm asking you a question. Do you really think we can't bear to kill you? I'm telling you, I don't have any feelings of going through thick and thin with you. Kitty Li roared fiercely, her hair standing on end. Kitty, Yi Qing Luo calmly said as her hand caressed Yin Xiao Yi's pale and icy cold forehead. Stop shouting, he can't hear you. You can't hear me? Kitty Li frowned, not understanding the deeper meaning of this sentence. Corpse worm, corpse worm. Suddenly, a scream of terror was heard from the Azura group's side. Nangong Lin jumped up as she stared at the row of densely packed corpse worms, which kept charging towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. She couldn't help but shriek as she kept on jumping into Yi Fengru's arms. Yin Xiao Yi's fresh blood had attracted that wave of corpse worms in King Ling's tomb. Numerous corpse worms smelled the fresh blood as they surged over. It made numerous mercenaries' scalps go numb. Even the world group's side had a little restlessness. Chapter 855. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as her stunning face was covered with a layer of frost. She was carrying Yin Xiao Yi in her arms. Yin Xiao Yi's wound was too deep, and because of the poison, Yi Qing Luo couldn't help her stop the bleeding. Otherwise, it would be easy to seal the poison in Yin Xiao Yi's body. The wound was too deep, and she couldn't move it. Otherwise, it would cause a hemorrhage. Facing the onslaught of the corpse worms, Yi Qing Luo could only choose to face it head-on. Her slender palm flipped as she was about to release her profound qi. Suddenly, a majestic, imposing manner pierced through the air and brushed past Yi Qing Luo's side. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. She heard a sharp wind sound and saw the group of at least 300 to 400 over corpse worms in front of her had stopped their surging momentum. In an instant, those corpse worms turned into pieces of debris. Not a single one was left. The strong force made everyone raise their eyebrows. That peerless man had an icy cold face as he stood behind Yi Qing Luo. The strong wind blew his luxurious purple robe as his black hair swayed along with it. It was Emotion, such a powerful overlord. Just a lift of his hand, and he was able to exterminate these corpse worms which they were helpless against. Xian. Yi Qing Luo glanced over, and when her gaze fell onto Emotion, that frosty and unyielding little face instantly collapsed. Xian. Her expression was helpless as her voice choked. Xian, I don't have the antidote for the purple poppy grass. Xiao, he can't wait till we leave the Ling King's tomb. Purple poppy grass? This was one of the top 5 poisonous grass in Nirvana realm. Everyone's expression changed as they all congealed towards Long Yunjian's direction. He actually used such a poisonous grass. He wanted to take Yi Qing Luo's life with one sword. I can wait. Xian nodded his head vigorously. He walked over and half-squatted beside Yi Qing Luo. His slender fingers moved the profound dragon ring as he took out a medicinal pill and stuffed it directly into Yin Xiaoyi's mouth. His palm flipped, and a burst of profound qi was released from his palm, pushing the medicinal pill into Yin Xiaoyi's body. Yi Qing Luo could obviously see that after the pill entered, Yin Xiaoyi's greenish lips gradually turned pale white, and her weak breathing, which was so weak that it could not be heard, also gradually eased up. Soul Return Pill. DMO Xian retracted his hand and placed it on Yi Qing Luo's delicate shoulder. Soul Returning Pill. It was a legendary pill. As long as a human was still breathing, he would be able to preserve his life after taking the Soul Returning Pill. It could be said that it was a rare pill that he had only heard of but had never seen. She did not expect DMO Xian to take it out just like that. It gave people the feeling that this soul recovery pill was nothing more than a low-grade medicinal pill that could be found anywhere. Ah Xian, thank you. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips. Her heart was filled with gratitude. DMO Xian didn't hesitate to take out such a precious elixir because of her. How could she repay what she owed him? Giving yourself to me for a lifetime is the best way to repay me. As though he had seen through Yi Qing Luo's inner thoughts, he bent down and leaned close to her ear. His voice was low and hoarse. Yi Qing Luo's curly long lashes blinked, bringing with it some moisture. All right, the soul-returning pill can only preserve her life. If you want her to live on, it's best to get rid of the poison as soon as possible. DMO Xian rubbed her soft fine hair. Now, you have more important things to do. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly, as her petite figure, which was leaning in DMO Xian's arms, trembled slightly. She stared at the pale-faced Yin Xiao Yi in her arms, suppressing the dull pain in her heart as she took a deep breath. That's right. She had more important things to settle. She needed to bring her brothers out of King Ling's tomb as soon as possible. She needed to look for Ghost Doctor to cure Xiao Yi. Chapter 856. Ajan. Yi Qing Luo called out. Her voice was soft and gentle, without any hint of complaint. Long Yunjian was still standing at his original spot with an expressionless face, turning a deaf ear to Yi Qing Luo's calls. Yi Qing Luo got up slowly. Kitty Li immediately squatted down and supported Yin Xiao Yi. Yi Qing Luo slowly walked towards Long Yunjian's direction as her eyes squinted. Her emotions were as calm as usual. Ajan. She shouted again. In just a few steps, he was already within 3 steps of Long Yunjian. Everyone's hearts were lifted as they looked at Long Yunjian nervously. She really couldn't understand. Long Yunjian wanted to kill her, so why did she still take the initiative to walk in front of Long Yunjian? Could it be that he still had extravagant hopes for Long Yunjian? But at this moment, no one opened their mouths to interrupt Yi Qing Luo's actions. Ajan, I believe in you. Those words were spoken softly, like pearls falling onto a plate, clear and melodious. Long Yunjian's body trembled slightly. His azure blue pupils expanded slightly, deeply reflecting Yi Qing Luo's face. A wisp of faintly discernible black mist flashed across the azure eyes. Black gas. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her lips curled into an extremely shallow, cold arc. Her guess was right. The reason why Long Yunjian would suddenly attack her. Dark forces. Dark rats that only know how to hide in the dark. If you really have the ability, come out and get in front of me. You only know how to play tricks in the dark. You deserve to be expelled by the Nirvana realm. Her voice was not loud, but it was definitely not soft either. Every single word was spat out clearly. Like a faint echo, it reverberated in the empty tunnel. Dark forces? The mercenaries of the Killing God group looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. The mercenaries of the World group were first stunned before they exclaimed, Vice Leader, you mean? Leader? Yi Qing Luo's half-squinted eyes were sharp and penetrating as she swept past the surrounding enemies who could conceal themselves. Yes, Ajan has been controlled by the dark forces. Yi Qing Luo was almost certain from the gush of dark qi which shot out from Long Yunjian's eyes. The other hidden faction in the tomb of the Ling King was the Dark Faction, that dark force that appeared and disappeared mysteriously and continuously tricked profound practitioners in assigning soul contracts. However, how could Long Yunjian be controlled by the dark forces? Wasn't everything fine before? Why all of a sudden, Student Yi, you're really sharp. I did it so secretly, but you were actually able to detect it. As expected of an opponent who gives me a headache. A sharp and proud laughter echoed in the spacious tunnel of the tomb. Soon after, a graceful and gorgeous young girl in a jade-green dress walked out from the darkness. When she saw that person again, Yiqing Luo was stunned. What made Yiqing Luo astonished was not that person's identity. Instead, that person's body was emanating a black aura. The smoke-like black gas swirled around the girl in layers. In the blur, the slender figure seemed to be swallowed by the black fog in an instant. Shangwan Lioli? What's wrong with her? What is that black fog around her? The mercenaries of the world group recognized the young lady's appearance with a single glance, and all of them were frightened by the thick black qi coiling around her body. TSK, TSK, TSK. Shangwan Lioli tilted her head, and that exquisite face under the black fog revealed a strange and distorted look. Student Yi, are you very shocked to see me appearing in the Ling King's tomb? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly, not to the extent of being shocked. On the contrary, Shangwan Lioli's dark force profound Yin-Shi was so thick which made her even more astonished. Chapter 857. Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised that Shangwan Lioli was targeted by the dark forces. She vaguely sensed that the dark forces were attacking the people around her or those who were about to approach her. The hatred that Shangwan Lioli had for her was enough for the dark forces to make use of. However, Yiqing Luo had not expected Shangwan Lioli to be swallowed by the dark forces so thoroughly. In order to surpass her and take her life, he did not hesitate to sell his own soul. TSK, TSK, TSK. You can still trust your leader when he's facing you with his sword. Should I admire your ridiculous sense of brotherhood, or should I laugh at your stupidity? The corners of Shangwan Lioli's lips curled up into a cold smile. The black aura around her body grew denser and denser. Yes, I was the one who controlled your guild leader. I wanted to see you kill each other. I didn't expect you actually stopped that little girl from killing your guild leader. She clicked her tongue and said with a face full of pity, otherwise, I would be able to watch the show of you killing each other. Shangwan Lioli could control Long Yunjian? She actually had the ability to control Long Yunjian? Could it be that Shangwan Lioli had not only signed a soul contract with the dark forces, but also made other deals? Bitch, I'll scratch your face. Kitty Lee angrily clenched her fists, and her hands instantly transformed into two huge black cat claws. Like a nimble cat, she slapped towards Shangwan Lioli. This bitch, how dare he make fun of them? Long Yunjian was actually obsessed with sex. If it wasn't for her elder sister stopping her, wouldn't she have become the world group sinner, and even her elder sister wouldn't like her anymore? Kitty Lee's jet black pupils suddenly flashed with a bewitching luster. In an instant, the two eyes that were like stars in the sky became extremely demonic. Her emerald eyes were sparkling and translucent, emitting a powerful killing intent. Shangwan Lioli snorted coldly. She raised her black eyes and waved her arms casually. A gust of mysterious Yin-Chi shot out from her arm. It swept up a smoke-like black gas and eroded towards Kitty Lee's direction. Kitty, Yiqing Luo shouted, come back. Kitty Lee was no match for Shangwan Lioli. Yiqing Luo had once come into contact with a profound Yin-Chi from Yiqing Qian. It was extremely strange, as if it had its own consciousness. Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. The mysterious Yin energy seemed to be interested in Kitty Lee. Did he want to take the opportunity to devour Kitty Lee? Yiqing Luo's eyes turned frosty. Her palms flipped, and the red feather fan swiftly struck out a strong airflow. At the same time, when Kitty Lee heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, that pair of devilish eyes instantly reverted back to its normal color. Immediately after, Kitty Lee's petite body rolled in the air and stood on the rock wall like a cat. The strong airflow, which Yi Qing Luo struck out, collided with the profound Yin-Chi. Rumble. Once again, the tomb shook and the mountain shook. Pieces of rubble collapsed. The surrounding rubble, due to the collision of the two forces, formed a whirlwind in the air. Yi Qing Luo flew up and stood firmly in front of Shangguan Liuli as her hands moved, and once again a majestic, profound qi was raised. The profound Yin Qi was instantly forced to retreat. Shangguan Liuli staggered as she retreated a few steps, but the smile on her face became even more strange. Tiske. No wonder student Yi is so loved by the Overlord. After your profound jade heart was shattered, you were still able to recover your profound jade heart in such a short period of time, and your profound qi also became so majestic. Chapter 858. Using her profound heart jade as a topic of conversation, or did he want to drag DMO Xin down with him? From the profound heart jade that DMO Xin had nurtured, a profound heart jade was formed and integrated into her heart. This was indeed a type of forbidden technique. However, so what if it was a forbidden technique? Did DMO Xin look like someone who would follow the rules? Even if the matter of him using the forbidden technique was made known to the world, DMO Xin would not even frown. Don't forget, Nirvana Realm's #1 palace was DMO Xin's Emperor Palace. It was known as the #1 evil palace. Would DMO Xin care about what the secular world thought? Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly. Even if Shangguan Liuli was completely engulfed by the dark force's mysterious Yin energy, it would not change the fact that she had big breasts and no brains. This mocking sneer stimulated Shangguan Liuli's nerves. The smile on her face froze, and her expression instantly turned sinister as she laughed sinisterly towards Long Yunjian, the World Group's group leader. Come, kill your companion and let me see your loyalty. Long Yunjian, who had been standing there without moving, slowly moved his slender figure. The blue long sword in his hand slashed down towards the World Group's direction without any hesitation. Leader! The World Group's mercenaries cried out in panic, but no one dared to stop him, as they could only scuttle around in all directions to avoid Long Yunjian's attack. Long Yunjian did not show any mercy. The speed at which he swung his sword became faster and faster. For a time, the entire tomb fell into chaos. The mercenaries of the World Group continued to flee. Shangguan Liuli was delighted to see this scene. Her eyes, which had been painted with gold powder, had already turned into a thin golden line from her smile. Ha ha! Interesting. Isn't the feeling of being attacked by your beloved and respected guild leader? His words had just ended when Long Yunjian's slashing figure had already neared Yi Qing Luo. He was also expressionless. The hilt of his sword shimmered as he raised his arm and chopped down. Roar! A sharp beast howl was heard, and Shi Ju, who was originally flung out to protect Yi Qing Luo, pounced forward once again, even though it was a phantom beast. But when it came to human emotions, it still understood a little. It did not open its mouth to bite Long Yunjian just because Long Yunjian attacked its master. It roared and pounced on Long Yunjian with its huge leopard claws, knocking him away. Long Yunjian's body hit the rock wall. His face was expressionless, and his gaze was calm. It was as if he could not feel the pain. Shiju, come back. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly widened as she immediately opened her mouth to summon Shiju back. She saw that Long Yunjian actually propped up his tottering body and directly attacked Shiju. His entire person was like a puppet controlled by his desires. A puppet that had completely lost its soul. Shangguan Liuli's gaze was filled with complacency as he laughed out loud. Yi Qing Luo, this is the spirit of brotherhood that you're so fond of, but if you make use of it slightly, he wouldn't even know who you are. Shangguan Liuli, you will pay for your actions today. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with murderous intent as she clenched her fists tightly. His long, narrow, and bewitching eyes caused one's heart to tremble with fear. Disregarding Long Yunjan's body, he forcefully controlled Long Yunjan, just to see them kill each other, just to make use of Long Yunjan, to kill her. If it wasn't for Yin Xiao Yi who helped her to block that sword, she would not be able to evade it. By then, when Long Yunjan regained his consciousness and saw this scene, how devastated would he be? Thinking of Yin Xiao Yi, the murderous intent in Yiqing Luo's eyes grew thicker. Chapter 859. Yiqing Luo didn't reply as a trace of viciousness flashed past her eyes. Her 5 fingers opened up as the red feather fan spun around her fingertips, like a leaping flame or a fiery butterfly spreading its wings. But as soon as she turned around, Yiqing Luo's figure disappeared. She appeared silently behind Shangguan Liuli. The red feather fan on her fingertips was like a raging flame as it waved out a strong, profound qi. How could Shangguan Liuli's reaction keep up with Yiqing Luo? Until the profound qi neared, Shangguan Liuli still hadn't noticed it. But Shangguan Liuli wasn't terrified. On the contrary, the expression on her face was calm, as though she wasn't afraid of Yiqing Luo's speed. Just as Yiqing Luo released her profound qi, it directly hit Shangguan Liuli's chest. The profound yin qi that lingered around Shangguan Liuli, under everyone's incredulous gazes, directly wrapped around Yiqing Luo. That's right, wrapped around. Like a densely packed big net, it wrapped around Yiqing Luo's arm. Apparently, Shangguan Liuli had been waiting for Yiqing Luo to fall into the trap. No matter how Yiqing Luo attacked, or how close she got to her, the profound yin qi surrounding her would engulf Yiqing Luo at the fastest speed. Looking at the profound yin qi that was like black smoke, instantly enveloping Yiqing Luo's arm, Shangguan Liuli's complacent and ruthless smile grew thicker. Yiqing Luo's expression was calm, as her narrow eyes narrowed. A boom sound was heard from her palm. A burst of powerful energy suddenly erupted. Like a tide, it actually forcefully controlled that profound yin qi in her hand. Shangguan Liuli's complacent smile instantly froze on her face. What are you trying to do? You know to panic? Yiqing Luo's narrow eyes were suffused with a trace of coquettish luster. Her eyes were filled with ridicule and despise. Yiqing Luo, who had crossed hands with the profound yin qi, naturally understood that the profound yin qi had its own consciousness. And this consciousness was very likely to be the real mastermind who brought the profound yin qi over from the dark forces. Trying to swallow her? She wanted to see if she was the one being swallowed, or the profound yin qi was controlled by her. Ever since DMO Xian appeared and formed a new profound jade heart for her, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that the profound jade heart in her body was different from before. As her strength grew, previously, the profound heart jade could faintly feel that the profound heart jade strength was not as strong as it wished. And this profound jade heart was clearly more capable of containing and absorbing the profound energy lingering within her body. DMO Xian had specially forged a higher grade profound jade heart for her. The child profound heart jade she formed was not her own profound heart jade. Even if his strength reached it, he would not be able to raise the level of his profound jade heart. If the profound heart jade had to rely on DMO Xian to constantly form and upgrade, let's not talk about whether it would affect DMO Xian. Even if it was her, because of the profound heart jade, she would only be able to display half of her strength at most. Her profound heart jade had to be retrieved as soon as possible. Yiqing Luo's eyes darkened as she increased the strength in her hands and broke through the restraint of the profound yin qi. The feather fan in her hands pierced right into Shangguan Liuli's chest. Shangguan Liuli let out a painful scream from her throat. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and blood immediately gushed out. She could even hear the sound of the feather fan piercing into her flesh. The surrounding profound Yin-Chi speedily formed a protective cover, enveloping Shangwan Liuli tightly. Following that, it forcefully forced Yi-Ching Luo out of the protective cover. The world group leader, Shangwan Liuli, cried out in terror. She had not expected that Yi-Ching Luo wasn't afraid of the dark force's profound Yin-Chi. Wasn't this profound Yin-Chi able to swallow everything in the world? To Yi-Ching Luo, it was totally useless. Chapter 860. Hearing Shangwan Liuli shout, Yi-Ching Luo gritted her teeth and immediately withdrew the profound qi that was used to break the profound Yin-Chi and swiftly retreated. In the next second, Long Yunjan's sword qi had already brushed past the place where Yi-Ching Luo was standing earlier. Long Yunjan waved his long sword once again as the sword waves surged with an earth-shattering force, directly charging towards Yi-Ching Luo. At the same time, Shangwan Liuli moved her palm, and countless black gas spun rapidly in her palm. A powerful wave suddenly erupted from his palm. Yi-Ching Luo's pupils constricted. Long Yunjan's participation had unknowingly become Shangwan Liuli's shield. She was bound to be restrained in this battle. Long Yunjan had already injured Yin Xiaoyi. If he hurt her again, with Long Yunjan's personality, after he wakes up, I'm afraid, damn it. Shangwan Liuli actually used such a despicable method. Yi-Ching Luo secretly clenched her teeth as she had no choice but to dodge, speedily evading their combined attack. Ching Luo, not knowing when Xiao Jin had already replaced Kitty Li and was holding Yin Xiao Yi in his arms. His thick palm gently caressed Yin Xiao Yi's pale face, his expression extremely ugly, especially when he saw Long Yunjan coordinating with Shangwan Liuli's attacks, striking out at Yi-Ching Luo. His expression turned even darker. He clenched the gold coin dart in his hand tightly as he gritted his teeth. Ching Luo, if group leader knew that you were injured because of him, he would definitely feel extremely guilty. Don't go easy on him. Xiao Jin was the clearest about Long Yunjan's feelings towards Yi-Ching Luo. He believed that Long Yunjan would rather sacrifice himself than to see Yi-Ching Luo getting hurt. Especially, he had injured her with his own hands. Yi-Ching Luo had been worrying about Long Yunjan, and if she only defended and not attacked, then she would be at a disadvantage, and it would be easy for Shangwan Liuli to take advantage of her. The rest of the world mercenaries nodded in agreement. Under Yi-Ching Luo's strong request, not only could they not go up to help Yi-Ching Luo, they even had to maintain a certain distance from Shangwan Liuli. At this moment, he could only stand by the side and worry. The profound Yin energy surrounding Shangwan Liuli devoured profound practitioners as food and turned them into her own energy source. There was a high possibility that it would devour the world group's mercenaries. Yi-Ching Luo naturally didn't dare to take this risk. Long Yunjan seemed to not know fatigue as he chased relentlessly. The sword waves that slashed out from his hand were also more ferocious with each wave. Suddenly, Shangwan Liuli muttered something. With her, as the center, the mysterious Yin-Chi on her body began to spin like a whirlwind. It was getting faster and faster. In the end, it surged towards Long Yunjan's body. Ajan! Yi-Ching Luo's pupils dilated as her red feather fan flicked, like a cold glint flickering sharp blade. It shot towards Shangwan Liuli, trying to cut off the profound Yin-Chi which was surging towards Long Yunjan. However, the profound Yin-Chi seemed to have guessed that Yi-Ching Luo would do this. A wisp of mysterious Yin-Chi seeped out from the swirling black Chi, directly blocking the devouring flame fan. Ugh! With a grunt, Long Yunjan, who was releasing sword energy, suddenly stabbed his sword into the ground and stumbled to a stop. Behind him, a mass of extremely dense, mysterious Yin-Chi was seeping into his body at an extremely fast speed. Ajan! Yi-Ching Luo was forced to retreat a few steps. That wisp of mysterious Inchi intentionally obstructed her as it kept splitting out numerous black smoke, attempting to devour her, until the mysterious Inchi completely entered Long Yunjan's body. The black chi around Shangwan Liuli became thinner by a little. Chapter 861. A large amount of profound Inchi was transmitted to Long Yunjan. The wound on Shangwan Liuli's chest, which was pierced by Yiqing Luo, lost the healing ability of the profound Inchi. Instantly, a ball of blood started to gush out. Her face was pale as she raised her hand to cover her chest, using her profound energy to stop the bleeding from the wound as she raised her head and laughed out loudly. Yiqing Luo, let me see. Will you resist with all your might and kill this group leader of yours, or you can't bear to do it and eventually die under this group leader's sword? Despicable. Shangwan Liuli, you're simply too shameless. Our group leader will wake up. He will not be manipulated by such a hateful woman like you. The world group's mercenaries were all infuriated. They clenched their fists tightly as their eyes were filled with rage. Right? Group leader will definitely wake up. Group leader. Group leader. Suddenly, some mercenaries started to call out to Long Yunjan, attempting to use their voices to awaken Long Yunjan's rationality. Long Yunjan's strength was already deeply ingrained in their hearts. They believed that Long Yunjan would not completely forget his original intentions because of the so-called profound Inchi. They wanted to awaken their group leader. One of them raised his head, and the other mercenaries were stunned for a moment, but immediately understood what he meant as they started to shout out their group leader loudly. It's no use. No matter how you shout, he will forever be my puppet. Shangwan Liuli laughed maniacally, as though she had already seen Yiqing Luo being sliced into pieces by her own trusted brothers. Shout all you want. Let these people, when they were filled with hope, be killed by their own brothers personally. This was the best revenge towards them. Who asked them to be that slut Yiqing Luo's followers? DMO Xian stood by the side as his purple robe fluttered and his black hair fluttered without any wind. That pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes were as deep as a lake, as he gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo's every action. He knew that the current Yiqing Luo had already been infuriated by Shangwan Liuli. Yiqing Luo wanted to personally take revenge for Long Yunjan and Yin Xiao. He only needed to stand by the side and watch on how his little Luo grew up. Long Yunjan, who was enriched by the profound Inchi, became even more vicious. When he raised his eyes to look at Yiqing Luo, his azure blue eyes were already covered with a layer of black fog. It was blurry and indistinct. Yiqing Luo's heart was overwhelmed with shock as she swiftly retreated backwards, gritting her teeth as she roared angrily. Shangwan Liuli, you actually did this. The fact that Long Yunjan was mysteriously corroded by the profound Inchi had already made her extremely furious. Shangwan Liuli actually dared to forcefully inject profound Inchi into Long Yunjan's body in front of her. Her charming eyes were sharp and filled with killing intent. She looked at Shangwan Liuli fiercely. I can't let you live. With a leap, the feather fan in his hand blossomed like a blazing rose at the tip of his fingers, and he slashed it horizontally towards Shangwan Liuli. Powerful, profound energy covered the sky and covered the earth, enveloping Shangwan Liuli. However, in the next second, Long Yunjan, who was launching an attack towards Yiqing Luo, his figure flashed as he speedily dashed towards Shangwan Liuli. He actually didn't release the slightest bit of profound chi, using his flesh body to block this attack for Shangwan Liuli. It was obvious that Shangwan Liuli had not given up on her intention to have them kill each other. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as her fingertips, which were gripping tightly onto the feather fan, had already turned green. She naturally couldn't let Long Yunjan block this attack. Immediately, her feet moved and her palm flipped as she set up another protective cover, blocking in front of Long Yunjan. Immediately, her body was already close to Long Yunjian as she stretched out her hand in an attempt to hook Long Yunjian's arm. Just as she stretched out her hand, that originally expressionless Long Yunjian suddenly flashed as he speedily shifted behind Yiqing Luo. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.